From the Rich Eisen Show studio in Los Angeles, today's guests, NFL Network insider Mike Silver, co-host of ESPN's Pardon the Interruption, Michael Wilbon, host of the Dennissance podcast, actor Dennis Quaid, and now, it's Rich Eisen.
All right, everybody. It is time for the Rich Eisen Show once again here on a busy Wednesday. 844-204-RICH is the number to dial. We say hello to our YouTube streamers, youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show. Our friends in our chat room, the wormhole, all the 454s out there. We say a good Wednesday to you, and we say hello to our daily listeners on Dan Patrick Radio right here, Sirius XM Channel 211. We say hello to you. In about an hour, we will say a good Wednesday to our NBCSN viewers. Michael Wilbon of Pardon the Interruption, ESPN, longtime Washington Post columnist. We see him all over The Last Dance, and for good reason. He is a native Chicagoan. He will join us on this program. There's also the Trubisky news that broke over the weekend that the team is ready to either have him you-know-what or get off the Trubisky pot, and he will be joining us in the middle of that second hour. Dennis Quaid will be in our final hour of the show. And first up, my buddy Mike Silver, and this was born out of yesterday's conversation with Thomas Lennon of Reno 911, Chris Brockman.
Of course it was. Of course it was.
Because, when we had Thomas Lennon on, and hey there, Mikey Del Tufo, good to see you.
Good to see you, Rich.
When we had Thomas Lennon on, and he talked about his Dennis Rodman doll that he had from his Bad As I Wanna Be era, that there was a doll that he kept in a full packaging that his wife opened up and gave to their child to play with, not fully aware that it was in a
memento. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't want to call it a family heirloom, but it was a long-time keepsake.
Keepsake, that's a good word.
And so opened it up and gave it to the children, and the silver booties that came with the Rodman doll were found on the floor. And at any rate, you said it was from the Michael Silver era, and I'm like, that's right. He wrote the book Walk on the Wild Side with Rodman that came out during the Last Dance era. That he wrote the book. He was a longtime Sports Illustrated writer, and I'm like, oh, he's got to have some Rodman stories.
Oh, baby.
And and I bet you that's how he's tight with Steve Kerr, too. I guess it's the Bear living in the north, of Northern California, and Steve Kerr is now the championship head coach of the Golden State Warriors. But I bet you that's where he met Kerr.
Yeah, so that book, Bad As I Wanna Be, features a naked Rodman on the cover on a motorcycle with the basketball covering the
right. But did Silver write that one, too?
Silver, that's the book that Silver wrote with Dennis. Came out in 96. Written during the 95-96 season. Of course, Dennis's first.
No, I think you're off, dude. That's Tim Cowan wrote that one.
Are you sure?
Yes. Silver did the Walk on the Wild Side with him.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, man. Bad As I Wanna Be was in 96.
That was the first one. Oh, my bad. I always thought Mike Silver wrote that book.
No, you said it was Silver, and then I looked it up, and his story with Rodman is quite something. Published in 1997, April 30th, 97. I mean, you want to talk about right at the outset of The Last Dance, right there.
Oh, Rodman's full gold dust on that.
Oh, yeah,
cover.
brother.
Wow. My bad.
And so Silver goes way back with him, and I'm like, I texted him yesterday. I'm like, do you want to come on the show and talk Rodman in the NFL, but mostly Rodman? So he will do so. And again, the NFL, my NFL Network colleague, Michael Silver, will be joining us on the outset of the schedule being released. And tonight is when we have our show meeting. And I can't tell if he was being serious or not.
Silver?
No, Andy Gregg, the coordinating producer of tomorrow's program and tonight's show meeting. The show might be 4 hours tomorrow. And I'm like, really? And he's like, I'm half kidding. we'll chat tomorrow night. So the scheduled show tomorrow night might be...
For a season that might be delayed?
Well, look, we all know that the season might be delayed or might be truncated, although the Notre Dame athletic director says he's confident in a full football season. I don't know if he might... Again, your school might have an in that we don't know on this front.
They do have touchdown Jesus.
Right.
They got a couple.
You know what? And obviously there's a suspension of disbelief, to use the phrase that you sometimes when you watch a movie or a TV show tomorrow night. But, you know, I will be conducting interviews with a handful of coaches. So there's, you know, germane conversations to be had about what's going on right now through the prism of the schedule. That's what the schedule show usually is.
Right. That's fun.
Yeah. Now, the guest list is pretty damn interesting. First up is, just, you know, right off the bat, is the Super Bowl winning head coach Andy Reid. I've got the list right here. I'll look it up in a commercial.
Do you think
break,
Andy Reid's going to be in his draft cave
if he is
next to the Stairmaster?
Next to the Stairmaster, and if I see a double red door behind him,
you got to ask him.
Well, here's the thing: is we only have about 4 minutes. Even though that's the thing that drives me crazy. Okay, here's the thing that drives me crazy. Although obviously here, when I've got 3 hours, the name of the show is my name, right? And all of that. And then I go into another television construct and say the show could be 4 hours long, but you got to keep it to 3.5, 4 minutes. And I'm like, why? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And, you know, just the rundown. I got Super Bowl winning head coach Andy Reid. And, of course, Mooch is going to be involved in that conversation, too.
Of course. So
it'll be Mooch up in Northern California, Andy Reid in front of those double red doors, and then, obviously, me. There it is. There's Don Bowie at the controls. There it is. Could be sitting right there. Could be sitting right there.
What if he's spread out on the couch in the back?
Could be in the man spread centerpiece.
Just
Could be doing all that.
Just relaxing.
4 hours long, brother.
That's a...
Does the stage crew know at your house it's going to be an extra hour?
You know, by the way, look at Don's all over right now. Could be a Hawaiian shirt. I assume the mug, the cup will be swapped out. Oh, he'll be in a Hawaiian shirt. Yeah, man. You know, it's 4 hours long potentially, definitely 3. And yes, the if you will, the surrounding members of the stage are very well aware it's a long one. It's a long one. And I might be the only host of a schedule release show, although I don't know what, I assume Trey's doing it for ESPN, who's got his video poker buddies waiting for him. So this thing's got to be over because this is a once-a-week thing. Question is, do I have the rich... You know what? We got tomorrow to talk about that. So, you know, we get Mike Silver on here to talk, because The Last Dance, I can't get enough of it. And I do believe part of it has to do with the fact that there is no live sports. And we are now in the month of May, where it's going to be go or no-go time for a ton of sports. Go or no-go time for a ton of sports. We all know, as we talked to Chase Elliott yesterday, it's go for NASCAR, or at least 11 days to see how it goes in Darlington and Charlotte, South and North Carolina, respectively. Our friends at NBC Sports talking about lacrosse returning, Professional Lacrosse League returning, professional golf apparently returning in June. Baseball will have to have a conversation. NBA having a conversation, NHL having a conversation, Premier League having a conversation. UFC, no conversations. They're going to go. They're going to submit each other coming this weekend. And
I think the quote I saw from Dana White was, "Somebody has to be first to get back to playing.
Okay,
to get back to the normal."
Is it Fight Island? Is it Fight Island?
So I don't think so.
No, it's in Jacksonville, Florida. I know that. Is it on the 17th green of Sawgrass?
Oh,
is that
that's
that
Fight
island? Do they put like a steel cage around that island?
I love where you're thinking here.
Is that where it is in Jacksonville?
You don't even need a cage,
Sawgrass?
and you get bonus points for throwing them in the water.
That's it. So that could be the Fight Island in Jacksonville. Someone has to be first. So it's going to be UFC, and then I guess we'll see if anybody catches this awful virus from that, and we hope not. I mean, look, I want to talk sports as much as anybody. I'm sitting here every single day. You, Brockman, Del Tufo, and T.J. Jefferson, our social media Graham Maester, Don Bowie sitting in the back pressing all these buttons, and Adam, our call screener. Be nice to him when you call 844-204-RICH. You know, if you have already have, we will take your calls. But we're here, and trust me, I want to talk sports as much as anybody else. I would love for society to open up. And everybody to get back at their jobs, and that where we all look, we could open society up and say sports is back, but I'll tell you what, you still, you know, somebody's got to be first. You first going out and seeing a movie in a movie theater and going to a game and stuff like that. You first.
Yeah, we know how it is.
You know what I mean? Everybody's on television saying we got to give, you know, everybody's got to sacrifice a little bit. You first. You first. And in the NFL, apparently sending out a memo today, and certainly I'm appreciative of seeing this, that the NFL is saying fans are going to get refunds of games that are either not played at all or played with no fans in the stands. And I forget what poll this was, but most fans would agree to no fans at you can play. I'll sit at home and watch, and I'll be happy to do that.
Happy to do that. As long as there's
Can you
games.
imagine somebody's out there who'd be like, you know what? You first, athletes. You go first. You do that. You quarantine. You do that.
Yep.
And I'm still not watching because there's no fans there. It's just I'm not into it. Or how weak is it if you're going to be pumping in the noise or whatever like that? That would be really weird if there's somebody out there that would actually.
That's crazy. I saw somewhere talking about the NBA returning with no fans, that these games with no fans could reach the level of those dream team practices where it's just all-time greats going at each other in an empty gym, because this is all it's all there is, and everything's on the line.
I mean, because if it's about the competition, and that's what players love, and that's why that they've made the NBAs, because they're ultimate competitors. Absolutely, I wouldn't have a problem at all with games being played, and I want to see trophies being lifted, because we're gonna get through this. This is going. I mean, I know many of us are sitting around wondering when is it going to happen, and it's only really been about 7 weeks since shelters in place took place here in Southern California. I mean, we're still closer to the beginning of this than the end of it, based on all the news reports that you're seeing. But we're going to get through this. There will be sports again. There will be a vaccine. We will go back to living life as close to as we knew it. I mean, many of us might have different habits in terms of spending our time out and about, or spending, period. But we will get through it. And the question is that if there are no champions crowned, and this is coming, we may be talking about this in June or July of the Rich Eisen show, when we're checking out what's going on in sports, because at some point there's got to be a go or no go, or we'll continue to keep postponing, and baseball could say, all right, you know what, we'll play 50 games in September and October and have an indoor playoff series, or a warm weather city playoff series. It's possible. But if there are no champions crowned, then how do you hold a draft for the next year? Who goes first? Who goes second? Who goes third? I mean, there's so many. And then if you don't have I mean, you want to talk about Premier League soccer, football. There are teams that if you don't play another game right now, could be relegated. And they're like, actually, you know what? We'd like to play some more matches so we don't get relegated. There's a lot on the line about actually wanting to play this year or not. That's why we go down the Last Dance wormhole, I think.
Yeah.
Because you're wondering when this is all going to happen, and what this is going to be like. And, you know, I try to talk straight with you here. So, you know, Michael Silver will be joining us about his Rodman recollections and what he is hearing about the NFL and the NFL schedule. And like I said, there will be some sort of suspension of disbelief, but it is entirely possible that games can get played September, October, that more palliative medicines are found. And there will be no fans in the stands, but at least you get to sit down on a Sunday. You know, me, Mooch, Kurt, and Irv might be all 6 feet apart on the set. On NFL game day morning, we might all just be.
Yeah, I mean, they
might just build a larger set, and we're all 6 feet away. Or they all stay there, and I'm sitting somewhere, and we host a virtual show. I mean, I just saw The Voice last night. I don't know if you watched that. It's a beautiful show, all done remotely. A singing competition done remotely. If you can do that, you can do pretty much anything remotely, except obviously play a team sport.
Yeah, today's show's going remotely, but on ESPN, they're still going in studio. They're sitting 10 feet apart on the same desk. Yeah, it can be done.
Our poll question of the day, Christopher, have at it.
Okay, so we're going to talk more about these sports documentaries. Of course, The Last Dance, we're all loving it. Which Last Dance doc would you want to see next? Talking the 2000 Patriots, Brady Belichick era, the early 90s Cowboys, or the Shaq Kobe Lakers?
Yeah, we'll get into this a little bit more in the NBC era, but I mean the NBC hour that comes, because, you know, I'm already getting calls from people saying, what's the football version of this? And I'm thinking about making something. And there's 2 football versions of it, and we'll have a conversation about it based on this poll question. And then what other basketball version of this would you want other than the Shaq Kobe era Lakers, right? What else would there be? I guess the Warriors, Kevin Durant, 20 some odd years from now. Don Bowie just chimed in with the UNLV Running Rebels. Did they do a 30 for 30 on the Tarkanian Running Rebels? Did they do that?
I believe
that sounds familiar.
So.
I don't know. That wouldn't be bad. And the next 2 episodes of The Last Dance.
I mean, I'd rather see a Fab 5 one where Weber's involved. I know we had a Fab 5 one. It was awesome. Chris Webber not involved in that one.
That's a good one.
I know C-Web said wait till his book comes out.
Well, I mean, you could do college basketball in general of that era, right? I know there was a 30 for 30 of the Big East.
That was amazing.
844-204-RICH is the number to dial here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's sneak in a quick phone call here from our 454s on this Wednesday edition as we're waiting for Michael Silver. Shane in New Jersey, you're here on the Rich Eisen Show. What's up, Shane?
Hey, Rich. Thanks for taking my call. Just a quick 2-part question. So for us Jets fans, you know, our big headline this week was Jets signed Hall of Famer running back Frank Gore. So the first part of my question is, what do you just think of the signing overall?
I love it.
What do you think he brings to the locker room? And then the second part is kind of a larger question is, what do you think constitutes a Hall of Fame career? Is it longevity? Is it accolades? A combination of the two, or just a bunch of intangibles that are not really explained?
Well, obviously, you got to be a difference maker. You've got to have to be able to tell a story of football, and you have to be an integral part of it. And that's where Chris Brockmans of the world think that Frank Gore is not, because you could easily tell the story of football without Frank Gore because he didn't win a championship. That the year that he did play in the Super Bowl, even though he had a great Super Bowl for the 49ers, it's not something that's terribly memorable, even though he did score a touchdown and had 100 yards in that game. But, you know, while I was going through that soliloquy, Don Bowie, my producer, put up on the screen the all-time rushing yards leaders, and Frank Gore is number 3. And if he does actually get 700 yards a season at age 36 and age 37 for the Jets, let's just say, you know, that the Jets use him in the similar manner that the Bills did last year when he ran for almost 600 yards, he would pass Walter Payton. I mean, he's got Walter Payton potentially in his sights if he can stay healthy and he plays 2 more years and he does get 700 yards rushing in each of those years. So through every single metric, and thank you for the call, Shane, he is a Hall of Famer, because you do have to include longevity. You do have to include being unique. 6 years past the supposed age that you are no longer usable at the position, he's still going on and going strong. And any teammate will tell you that he was a great teammate and also somebody who was inspirational. But in terms of the Jets, like I said, Le'Veon Bell last year was a total washout, and hopefully this year they've improved the offensive line, and he can't play every damn down. So here comes Frank Gore. I love it. I thought that was a terrific signing. He also knows the division. And he continues the tradition of the Jets having Hall of Fame rushers in their backfield. You didn't even know John Riggins was a Jet until I mentioned that yesterday.
I didn't.
There you
I had
go.
no idea.
There's a history lesson for you. He is my buddy from the NFL Network, NFL Media Group, and also goes way back in the day, walking on the wild side with Dennis Rodman, and with Rodman front and center and The Last Dance being something that's taken up a ton of oxygen in our sports room these days with no live events and no live sports. I figured let's have the co-author of Walk on the Wild Side, a man who was back in the day with Rodman and someone who also knows what's going on in the NFL today, my buddy Michael Silver. How are you, Michael?
I'm great, Rich. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How did you get involved with Rodman back in the day, Mike? Let's just jump right into it with both feet.
Well, I was hired by Sports Illustrated in late 1994, and we, in 1995, we had just finished an infamous media summit, which, as good as the NFL media summits have been in recent years,
yes,
this was a boondoggle of epic proportions out in Orlando. And Jordan ended his retirement during that, and they actually, sent Rick Riley hastily out to go work on that, and it shuffled some things. And I came home pretty dog-tired. My wife wasn't loving me, and I got a call that said, you got to get to L.A. We want you to do a story on Dennis Rodman. He was on the Spurs. They were getting ready to close out the Western Conference semis against the Lakers at the Forum. And my first reaction was, oh, man, you're killing me. But I knew it had the potential to be a good match. Rodman was just getting weird kind of overtly, had been involved with Madonna recently, and I figured we'd either really get along or not so much. And I don't know, I must be a little twisted because we proceeded to go on a 4-day, 3-state odyssey with very little sleep, a lot of Pearl Jam blasting, gambling in Vegas, coaches yelling at him, then GM Greg Popovich yelling at him, and I wrote what turned out to be an SI cover story in real time at his house after we'd had a nice dinner at a gay bar, I think dinner at a strip club, went to a gay bar. He was in another room with a stripper friend making some loud noises, and there were some exotic birds all over the house, even louder. And somehow I wrote that thing and then wrote the lead in the morning as more zaniness ensued. So, it was a blast, and then we proceeded to spend a lot of time together in the next few years, and it helped kind of kick off my SI career. And at one point we were on a plane, Rich, and about day 3 of this, and he looked at me and he said, "You are bleeped." And I looked up and he said, "Yeah, man, after this everybody's going to be boring. I'm the most, no one's going to be more open than me. No one's going to be more fun than me." And I kind of laughed and thought, yeah, he might be right, but we're gonna enjoy this.
Was he right?
Yeah, I mean, in some senses he was right. I mean, I always feel like I can bond with people and get access and get compelling stories, and there are people who obviously are doing very serious, important things that, you and I try to highlight and talk to. But in terms of living out loud and letting your freak flag fly in the sports world, it was pretty significant, and, in a much different time. And I don't know how much of it was truly appreciated at the time because of that, but he was a guy who felt like he was weird inside and was afraid to let that out for a long, long time, and he was afraid because he thought he'd be reviled and mocked. And when he finally started to, he was shocked that so many people in society who felt marginalized or similarly really warmed to him and celebrated him and felt like he had spoken for them in a way that really touched them. And a lot of these people weren't basketball fans, and specifically the LGBTQ community and the transgender community specifically. he was very openly kind of, sending the message that these people were like us and totally okay, and that also that, maybe they were being, unfairly looked upon. And I think that a lot of that kind of got lost amid the noise and the hysteria and the fun, and there was a lot of fun, but he was really, ahead of the curve on that.
Mike Silver, my compadre from NFL Network, NFL Media Group, reminiscing about his Rodman days when he was covering him for Sports Illustrated, and then wrote a book with him, Walk on the Wild Side. Why do that book after he was already as bad as he wants to be, Mike? Why do that?
Well, it's a sad story, Rich. So after that SI cover story came out, which was the iconic cover with Rodman and the zip-up metallic tank top and the bird on his shoulder and all that, a publisher approached me, and I approached Dennis, and we were going to do it. And I had just gotten to SI. I really didn't know what that would mean in terms of time commitment, and I was their new football guy. Literally, Rick Tellender left a couple months after I got there, and they wanted me to be the lead football guy, and I didn't know what that meant either, but I knew that it was going to take a lot of work, and this book was going to have to get done timing-wise during that first season first full season I was covering in '95. So, I talked to my bosses. We tried to see if it was workable. They felt like it wasn't going to be workable on their end, and I ended up helping them find Tim Kuhn to do that book, partly because I knew Tim would crush it, and he hit it out of the park. It was a phenomenal book, and it worked out amazingly and sold a ton. And I was obviously a little bummed I didn't get to do it, but I knew the product was phenomenal. And then I was pretty amazed that they then came back to me and said, "Hey, we got a nice deal for a sequel. We want you to do it." And I'm thinking, Tim did a pretty good job on that first one. I totally get it, but it was amazing. The discussion to whether we were going to do the second book together, literally it went like this. Dwight Manley, his then agent, said, "Listen." By now he's on the Bulls. They're playing the Sonics that's a team in Seattle for you young people. But the Seattle Supersonics in Game 1 of the 1996 NBA Finals. And so Dwight says, "Listen, just fly to Chicago, go to the game, and we'll, he said, we're all going to go out afterwards. We'll drink all night. We'll do our thing. And then, the next day at breakfast, we can nail this down." So I just flew to Chicago, and I didn't know where I was sitting, who I was sitting with. And, I grew up with Steve Kerr, so I was already feeling, pretty excited about the 96 Bulls. I knew Jud Bushler through Steve, and, now, of course, Dennis is on the team, and, Jordan's back in the finals. It's a pretty cool scene. And so I go to pick up my ticket, and it's courtside. Okay, cool. Wonder who I'm sitting with. A guy comes and sits next to me, and he's like, "Hey, I'm Jeff." I'm like, "Oh, hey, Jeff." Totally cool, chill dude. I'm like, "Oh, it's Jeff Ament from Pearl Jam." Of course. Nice, sweet. Big Sonics fan, so that was fun. So I proceeded to watch that epic game, Jordan going up against Gary Payton and et al., with the bassist from one of my favorite bands of all time. And then we all went out that night. There was this short guy who probably hadn't showered in a while, a little skittish at the time, hanging out with us. "Oh, there's Eddie Vedder. Cool." And, really, that kind of stuff wasn't uncommon going out with Rodman, although, Eddie Vedder was a pretty big deal, of course. But, there was a big fun scene with people from all walks of life. And I think, in those days, that's why Rodman, really felt so invigorated and so emboldened to just let it fly, because he wasn't seeing it as just basketball. And I had plenty of conversations with him where I said, "Hey, dude, rebounding. Like, I know you think you're a movie star. I know you think it's bigger than all this, but you got to stay great at the one thing that you're the best at. Don't forget." And but as things kind of went on, that scene changed, and more people around him, I felt, were just egging him on to be Dennis Rodman, the freak show, and there were fewer people who came into that scene as legitimate entities who did their own thing, and I think it got harder and harder for him that way. And I'm proud of him for persevering and hanging tough and still being in the mix. And he's definitely not a perfect guy, but he's tried very hard to not let it all collapse.
Mike Silver here on the Rich Eisen Show. So you're watching The Last Dance, I imagine, and you see the Rodman episode, and Carmen Electra, who I'm sure you crossed paths with back in the day then, if you were right in the middle of the Rodman orbit when The Last Dance was actually being played. Did you learn anything? What were your thoughts when you watched that? Mike?
It was interesting. I was all over the Rodman 30 for 30, and that was really cool. And so I kind of went into The Last Dance. I hadn't been interviewed, and I'm wondering, am I going to turn up in any of the footage? So first of all, the Vegas trip, which I kind of remember during that season, that last season in Chicago, I immediately started getting texts from some people like, hey, were you on that trip? And I kind of had to go, wait, was I? I don't think I was on that one, but there were a few.
Right.
I'm trying to, I'm looking at the timing. Was it during the football season? Probably not, but that was, it was kind of weird not to remember that it was such a blur. And then I just, I guess I'm amazed that there's so little footage that has surfaced. And I know it was a different era, thank God, without cell phone cameras and all that. But, we were pretty conspicuous. When we would go out in Chicago, for example, we would have dinner in front of everybody. We would go to Crowbar, a pulsating club full of, 1,000+ people, and no VIP room, we were right there in the middle of everything all the time. It was packed, and you had to stay tight to move around when we'd go to the next place, but it was no secret. And he was very predictable. That he had about 5 places he ate dinner. He had a couple places he ate lunch, and a few clubs he went out to, a gay bar. It wasn't, and a strip club. It wasn't unpredictable where he'd be, and it wasn't a secret. And it just amazes me. I guess it's probably a good thing, but it just amazes me that there's not more footage of what we were doing. I remember vividly, we were at the Mirage in Vegas where Rodman used to go until I think he was banned at one point after a drunken incident, I think leaving Las Vegas style. But we were at the Mirage, and we're playing craps out in the middle of everything, and random people are coming by and being part of the table, and Dennis is talking to everyone, and it was, as overt of a celebrity scene as you'll ever see. And I remember Dennis at one point went to the bathroom, and he kind of pointed to this little room in the middle of everything, little cordoned off area, kind of half room, and there were a couple of tables in there, and he said, see that? He said, that's where Michael goes when he comes here. It's just him and a dealer alone playing cards in that room, and nobody can get in. And I just said, that doesn't look very fun. He said, no, I don't see how it could be. And just, such a different approach. Now, and I don't want to compare the two. Michael Jordan was a more massive celebrity, and rightfully so. We're talking about, one of the most significant athletes in the history of all sports. And, but Dennis was, Dennis was the closest thing to that in sports at that time, just because of the public theater and the weirdness and the loudness of it all. So it was just such a divergent approach.
So I guess my question for you, Mike, is what was your interaction with Jordan at all? I mean, did Jordan look at you like you were an enabler or an interloper? Or because how does it – it's amazing they won basketball games at the clip that they did with everything that's going on. I mean, I know we're hearing about what a rock scene it was, but this truly was a rock star setting for the NBA. And so how did Jordan view you? Take me into that part, Mike.
I don't think he was thrilled to I don't think it was personal, but I just think I was just another guy that, was around Dennis and doing stuff with Dennis and, rolling in to the practice facility with Dennis at 9 a.m. when he probably hadn't slept much. And I wouldn't say enabler, but just part of the show. Although I will say this, Jordan knew that he, for the most part, could control Dennis in all things basketball, and you see that in the show, and there's no way it would have worked otherwise, because David Robinson wasn't controlling Dennis right at that point, and certainly after he left the Bulls, he was more wayward, but Jordan was still Jordan. So but it is really significant, right? Like, think, how would Peyton Manning look at me if I were rolling into the Colts or Broncos orbit during those heyday times with a football player living like Dennis Rodman?
Right.
He probably would want to rip my throat out deep inside.
Right.
So, I had great interactions with Jordan. It was fine. He was, it reminded me a lot of Jerry Rice. I came in covering the 49ers in the late 80s or 89 and then the early 90s, and that was as close to a rock star situation for a football team at that point, with Joe Montana and Jerry Rice and Ronnie Lott and the ostentatiousness. It was amazing. So, Jerry Rice to me was so maniacally driven and humorless and had to win everything all the time, and I was around him every day, and we got along great. We had our ups and downs. We had some bad moments where but he was not a joy to be around. It was unrelenting, and it wore on everybody, but it also made sense to me that he was the absolute best ever to do it, because that's what you want. It would have bummed me out if some guy who didn't seem to try that hard or didn't seem to care that much was also the greatest. Like, at least this guy was insufferable, but it led to something. And I think that's how it was with Michael. And, I remember when Sports Illustrated sent me out in the 96-97 season, so the spring of 97, to do a story on Steve Kerr. We had been high school writing partners, and, now here he was and here I was, and it was a cool story. So my wife and I and our newborn daughter, who's now 23, flew out there and stayed with Steve and Margot and their young family, and spent a bunch of days out there, and it was awesome. And Steve had joined the team Steve had been on the team, and Jordan had come back the year before, and they famously got into a fight like at the first practice, and Jordan punched him in the face, and it was they ended up becoming close, and Steve hit the game-winning shot in the NBA Finals. It was awesome. So, he's kind of really, for the first time, laying that whole scene out for me. And, he said, dude, I'm sitting in practice, and I can tell Jordan doesn't like me, or he's mad, he's not into me, and he's provoking me. And finally, he's about to, he pushes me. And he said, I got two choices, and they're not good choices. I can, wuss out and be basically, consigned consigned to the garbage bin in his eyes and my teammates' eyes forever, or I can fight Michael Jordan. And so he fought Michael Jordan and lost, and and lived through it. But I remember at one point Steve's son Nick, who is now a couple years older than my daughter, but he was very young, and I said, he said, yeah, Nick and, Michael's kids shoot around sometimes and, before practice. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. I said, if you played Michael Jordan in horse and you beat him, could you, laugh about it the next day or make a comment about it? And Steve, looked at me dead serious, and he was like, no way, no chance. And I said, well, what if Nick beat Michael's son? What could you make a joke about that? And he's like, absolutely not, no. So, I I hope people appreciate that the most about Jordan, that it was, sure, he could be funny and charming and he had his outside interests, but it was relentless. And, I don't think it's that unlike your Bradys and your Mannings and your Rices, but, there's a method to the success.
So a few minutes I have left with you, Mike Silver. When was the last time you spoke to Rodman? What's your relationship like with him now?
It's good. It's sporadic. It's funny. I forgot the last time I talked to him on the phone. It was probably, I don't know, maybe about 9 months ago or so. But you always forget that Rodman's way of ending phone conversations is that he decides at some point in the conversation that it's over and hangs up with zero warning.
Really?
And, I used to, kind of factor that into the process. But, when you don't talk to him as much, it always catches you off guard. And, one thing that was fun is that, and Rodman, people don't understand, the sensitivity sometimes. He's, he wants to please. When he's got a great BS detector, so if he thinks you're full of it, he tunes out. But if you're someone that he wants to connect with, he's there's kind of a sweetness about him that I think some people miss. So as the Warriors started getting really good, he and I talked a couple times about him showing up to a game, or both of us going to one of the finals games, maybe on the road, and we tried to kind of connect that a couple times. But at one point, he called me, and my daughter Natalie was in the car, and I think I put her on speaker. And there's this photo I posted recently from that same trip I referenced to Chicago to do the story with Steve, where he's walking out. He emerges from the locker room. He's wearing this top with gold sequins and all this stuff, and she's kind of pulling at his top. She's 6 months old, mesmerized by the shininess, and he's literally trying to hand her a can of beer for laughs. But one of the SI photographers took the shot. It's a great shot. So he started talking to Natalie and got kind of emotional, and we took him way back. Well, Natalie, it turned out, went to Cal. And Maddie Kerr, Steve's daughter, was a volleyball star there a year ahead of her, and they became friends as adults. And they were at a party one night and jokingly flipped off the camera and sent me the picture. And I think Maddie actually sent me the picture. And so at one point I sent it to Dennis, after we had spoken, just to kind of go, hey, look, dude, it's little Maddie and little Natalie. And he called me as soon as I sent it, kind of all upset, and he thought they were flipping him off and wanted to know what had happened. And I was like, no, it was a joke. They're flipping me off, and I kind of had to talk him down. So, I really listen. I'm really touched by some of the things he did for me at the time. I was a young Sports Illustrated writer. I wrote that cover story. There were some outrageous quotes in there, and subject matter that was not generally talked about in SI. He went on David Letterman right afterwards. I know he had been advised by someone very close to him to deny everything in the story subsequently, that was the best strategy. And David Letterman, who was the biggest thing in the world back then, asked him point blank twice, held up the magazine and said, does this accurately represent you? Did you say these things? And both times he just unflinchingly said, absolutely, it was a great story. I love it. And so, I'll always remember that when the heat really got turned up, he stayed true to the process, and he frustrates the heck out of me, like he does a lot of people. I would liken it to, it's like your best friend when you're 10. It's the greatest thing, but sometimes you need to have an emotionally developed conversation, and you want to strangle him, but lovingly so. So I got nothing but love for Dennis, and he's a work in progress, but he's done a lot of cool things.
Perfect guy to ask the poll question as we end. And by the way, I will say goodbye. I'm not just going to hang up on you, Rodman style. Okay, Michael?
That would have been cool.
No. I know. It would have been good for the joke, but I just still can't do that. I'm a Jewish goodbye guy. I mean, Rodman's the exact opposite, obviously. So ask the poll question of Michael Silver. That's at Rich Eisen Show for people to vote on right now.
Yeah, Mike, which Last Dance style doc would you want to see next? One about the Brady Belichick Patriots, the 90s Cowboys, or the Shaq Kobe Lakers?
I'm going off the board. I'm going 80s and early 90s Niners, because then I could be all over it. And I would also like to pour some liquor out for someone near and dear to Rich and my heart, fictional Carl, the Jets fan from Curb, who never got a chance to say goodbye.
Okay, so the 80s, should we add the 80s, 90s Niners? Just real quick, Michael. So give me some, what would be the beats, to use the, phrase?
Well, it's going to take too long, but let me just say this. The people freaking out because the Packers drafted Jordan Love, and how's that going to work with Aaron Rodgers? Steve Young and Joe Montana were on the same team for 6 years. There were times where they alternated starts. There was a game where Young played the first half and Montana played the second half just to see what would happen. And they did not get along, and it was insane. And they're both first-ballot Hall of Famers, and people have no idea.
Then Bill Walsh was in the middle of it, right? And there's Jerry Rice.
Walsh was in the middle of it. Seifert was in the middle of it. I was in the middle of it. It was awesome. Very quickly, Steve Young tells this great story where he says to Aaron Rodgers after Rodgers' 2010 MVP season, the next year they're talking about it, and Aaron's telling him about the whole season, and Steve says, "Oh yeah, and where was Brett during that?" And Aaron goes, "Huh?" He goes, "Where was Brett?" He's like, "I don't know, Mississippi." And Steve goes, "Yeah, when I had my first MVP season, Joe was on the sideline staring at me." I mean, people would be amazed by some of the things that some of the coexistence that had to happen back in the day.
And now your Fail Mary friend is in the role of Favre. Isn't that amazing? When it comes down to it.
It is.
I am mandated to ask you. I know we've been talking for a while, and I don't know if you have anything to do else on this Wednesday. But
no, I'm good.
Okay, what do you think? How do you think Rodgers is reacting to this?
That's a great question. I've not directly spoken to him. Okay. I believe that if he's upset inside, he's very mindful of the optics and is playing it off well. But I don't know. I think it clearly was a move by management. I think the more there's a chance that, and I would advise management to play it this way too. There's a chance that it can be coaches and Rodgers against the man, and that's probably the best thing short term for the organization if that's how it goes, and I don't think that would be inaccurate, but I think the opportunity cost is more the issue than the young guy on the roster who could theoretically replace him. Aaron Rodgers knows he's the best quarterback there and will be, and he's not worried so much about that, I think it's what could they have done with that pick and what did they do with the subsequent picks, and you can understand how that would be frustrating.
Well, I mean, Favre came on this show 1 week ago on this very day and termed that opportunity cost as a burned bridge. That's how he termed that opportunity cost, said that it was going to rear its ugly head. You call it opportunity cost. He called it something that would definitely get the wheels turning in Rodgers' head, that will wind up with Rodgers wearing a different uniform a la Brady, Manning, and everybody else from that, I guess, era.
I would not discount anything that Brett says about the subject, A, because he and Aaron have a good relationship now, and I know they talked, as Brett said, and B, because very few people have lived those things, but Brett is one of them, and I've seen it happen with Montana. I've seen it happen with Favre. I saw Marino basically told, "You're done," and he had to decide whether to go to the Steelers or retire. See Troy Aikman be told, "You're done, and you can go somewhere else or retire." Steve Young, was probably at the end of the line if he decided to come back, and Peyton Manning and now Brady, a little different, but yeah, it's it's never easy. It's never smooth. It's never seamless. The closest we got to that was Elway with the storybook walk-off, second consecutive Super Bowl win. But organizationally, they really paid a price. They had a very tumultuous, aftermath. So, I get why the Packers would be looking ahead. I've heard some amazing things about Jordan Love. I think Aaron, as long as the kid's not entitled, which I don't believe he will be from what I've heard, I think Aaron will treat him fine. And I think in the short term he'll be motivated even more, or as much as, and not more, but, he'll be locked in as much as he's ever been. But, I don't discount anything Brett says about that, because they can have a conversation on a much different level than any of us can.
Mike, you're the man. Appreciate it. Are you part of this schedule release show tomorrow, or you're just?
I will be watching you.
Okay.
The reshuffling of the cards. I've been fortunate enough to be in that room with you when it happened.
Oh, yeah, man.
I think it's one of your. I don't think it's as easy of an endeavor as it looks, and it always, when you're there to carry it, it always feels good. But
thanks,
I'm excited to watch you guys. We're not as, I'm sure most of your viewers and listeners know that as a network, we're not operational the way we normally would be, and we're obviously contending with this unique situation like everybody else. But, I think what we've been able to do has been kind of uplifting, just, for those of us who know how tough it is to do this stuff. We're trying hard to provide a diversion for everybody, and I'm excited to watch what you guys have going.
Appreciate it, Mike. I'm just as good as I want to be. That's all.
You can hang up on me now.
All right, there you go. Hang up on him. That's Michael Silver.
Mike, take it easy.
How great
Thank
was
you.
that?
Have a great one.
Wasn't that
Thanks
great?
again, brother.
I love
Bye-bye.
him. There you go. That's Michael
Dude,
Silver.
I could listen to those Rodman stories.
I thanked him, Rich.
all day.
I think we need to add the 80s, 90s.
Well, it's tough
the
because
poll's
it's
there.
already out there.
Okay, fine.
That poll's good right there.
People could call.
and
If we missed anybody, you just call us 844-204-RICH. We will take your phone calls in the NBC hours. If you're on hold, please stay on hold. I will promise to take your call and calls 844-204-RICH, number
And
to dial.
it's split so far.
But how about that story of Steve Young saying to Aaron Rodgers, so when you won your MVP,
Where was
Favre? Mississippi. Yeah, Joe Montana was on the sideline of mine staring at me the whole time. Oh, my God.
Wow.
Now that is a documentary. It is. Yeah. Bill Walsh is in the middle of it, all-time great coach. Jerry Rice is is the receiver with Terrell Owens coming. Right?
So that
Eddie DeBartolo in the middle of all of it, and then they sell it to the York family. Well, let's sell it to the York. His sister's got to take it over.
So that was 1992.
Yeah.
That was Steve Young's first MVP.
You could do, The Last Dance is 84 to 98, right? So you could take Montana's drafting through the catch, totally through beating, all the championship years of Montana, to Steve Young, to George Seifert for Bill Walsh, through the monkey off the back of Steve Young, to Terrell Owens with Mooch. That's 15, 16 years, right? 17 years more? No, it's 20 years. It's a longer time than The Last Dance, but it's still...
Bill doesn't go to Stanford again.
Dude, man, that would be... Wouldn't you want to see a documentary on that?
You could pick it up at Montana's injury, the sack against the Giants.
And not have... And do like one episode as a flashback of all the 80s
Just do like
stuff?
a big montage of all the 80s and the Super Bowl wins and the Broncos and the Bengals and the Dolphins.
So
and all that
Leonard
stuff.
Marshall destroying the body of Joe
picks
Montana
up
is where you pick it up.
And then it's Madden saying, and the report from the Niners sideline, everything hurts.
All the way through to what? Mooch with T.O.?
All the way through to the T.O. game.
I don't know. I still want Rice. I still want all that stuff with Rice and Montana. and John Taylor.
How many episodes are we going? 4, 5?
Who cares?
Something like
What else
that?
we got to do?
That's what I mean. So you could do it like how The Last Dance is doing
10
it
episodes,
and kind
right.
of flashback, but focus
Show Montana,
on
Notre Dame.
It's not a bad one.
But focus on what year though? The 92
Screw Notre Dame.
season?
I'm sorry. I said I got to get that out of my
Notre Dame?
system before NBC gets involved here.
Come on. National championship.
Niners were 14-2 that year.
So Barkley on Chicago radio, kind of echoing what you and TJ Jefferson picked up when he was on the show on Monday. That's part of our news update, right?
Yes,
It's
sir.
coming up,
Yes, sir.
right?
When do you want to do the news?
Top of our final hour before
great.
Dennis Quaid.
Yeah, we got
There's
a few
Tiger King news as well.
Tiger King. We got a few NFL things.
All right, so you've got a news update for hour 3.
Yeah,
a good old-fashioned Brockman
Sam
news
Darnold
update.
has talked, and Jags
good
GM has talked.
old-fashioned Brockman news update. And I will use the final hour here to ask TJ Jefferson, when you putt, can you continue to putt at the same hole you were? Because how you started the show, we just saw all of TJ Jefferson.
We saw.
Plus, it was like a 3-foot putt.
I know.
Exactly.
You saw all of TJ. We
what
didn't
are we
see
doing?
who's on the show. We didn't see
mini-golf.
who's on the show, okay? You obscured the leaderboard with all of TJ. Okay, and again, he's not using the microphone.
Yeah, exactly.
He's fine. He's fine.
That's all right. He didn't know we were coming to him for the
What
last
are you,
minute.
like 6'3", 250, something like that?
Oh, that's not right.
Whoa.
He just confirmed it. He's a big guy.
I know. I understand. Dennis Rodman. And Silver. My gosh. Michael Wilbon, a part of the interruption to talk about Last Dance and Trubisky's final, maybe last dance of Trubisky. And Dennis Quaid, who's got a new podcast called The Dennissance. His podcast guest today, Albert Pujols.
Hey,
okay, so we got
about
to figure out
that?
what's going on with Dennis Quaid and Albert Pujols. And I guess we got to get him to tell a good Lawrence Taylor story from Any Given Sunday.
Of course.
I mean, but nothing's going to top Silver talking about the Bad As I Want to Be era through the Walk on the Wild
Just
Side.
mad.
That was
My
great.
book cover was going to be exactly
Hour 1 of the
that.
books. We'll see you on the other side of this commercial break with the NBCSN crew.
All right, Larry, while the radio audience is away, would you mind reading some lines that we can use for drop-ins for future radio use? Would you do that?
Sure.
Thank you. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
The phones are lighting up. The caller makes a good point. I need callers. Where are my callers? Turn your radio down, pal. You're talking to Rich Eisen. That's R-I-C-H. Eisen. If Belichick's a genius, call me Einstein. Oi, Del Fulo.
It's Del Tufo. You're right. Oi, Del Tufo. Here we go.
What is that?
That's him over there. He's our sound guy that fumbles all the time.
Oi, Del Fufo.
Del Tufo.
What the hell a name is Del Fufo?
Del Tufo.
Oh.
Okay.
Oi, Del Tufo. You're not Jewish. What's the matter with you? You're on the air, Del Tufo. Putting the oof in Del Tufo. Nobody knows anything, baby. Time is a flat circle. Is this segment ever going to end? Time has lost all meaning. I've had marriages that didn't last this long. Don't care. We're going to miss you, Rex. Said it once, I'll say it again. The Patriots are fascists.
That's ridiculous.
Seahawks are fickle, angry birds.
That's it. Larry King, everybody.
Thank you, man.
That's a Del Tufo over there, by the way. There he is.
That is your name? Del Tufo?
That's right.
This is the Rich Eisen Show.
There was once a man named Rich. Talk smack, he'll put you in a ditch. He has the bling, so kiss his ring.
And he'll make you his.
What?
Live from the Rich Eisen Show studio in Los Angeles. Earlier on the show, NFL Network insider Mike Silver. Still to come, co-host of ESPN's Pardon the Interruption, Michael Wilbon. Host of the Dennissance podcast, actor Dennis Quaid. And now, it's Rich Eisen.
Well, hey, everybody. It is a Wednesday show here on the Rich Eisen Show, and we say good Wednesday to our friends on NBCSN and the NBCSN audience. And we see Chris Brockman and Mike Del Tufo, TJ Jefferson. It's okay, TJ. You can keep walking. It's all right. TJ, we just saw you come up short on a putt, man.
Yeah, you missed.
It's all right. It's okay. He's going back to his socially distant spot. That's okay. Our Rich Eisen Show social media grandmaster.
Back to the 3-foot putts.
All good. It's not a metaphor for anything. We've had great shows when he's missed a putt.
That's true.
We've had great shows when he's missed a putt. Yeah. And that coming up just short is not a metaphor for this show. As anybody who's picked us up from our first hour, which starts at noon Eastern every day on Sirius XM channel 211, and also our YouTube stream, youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show. We had my compadre, Michael Silver from the NFL Media Group on. We hardly spoke about the NFL, which is going to have a schedule release show tomorrow night at 8 Eastern time on NFL Network, and it's entirely possible that show is longer than the draft that will take place 2 weeks prior. It's entirely possible that show is a 4-hour-long show. At least that's the back and forth that I've had with Andy Gregg, the coordinating producer of the schedule release 2020 show. I don't think he was joking that it could be 4 hours long. And I don't think the show is that long because I'm going to read out every single game, all 256 games.
256 games.
And then week 2. A CBS on CBS.
And the fourth game is...
And then the fourth game. Why don't you tell me the name of the game you'd like to see? At any rate, Michael Silver, we had him on, and because he was the author of the second Rodman book that came out right before the Last Dance season.
Right.
And he was telling stories about he was supposed to write the first Rodman book, but couldn't because Sports Illustrated, who was employer at the time, just made him the lead NFL writer. So he gave it off to Tim Kuhn.
Wow.
And he was telling Rodman stories that, I'll tell you what, make you blush, and I'm wearing makeup. And man, oh man, it's all sitting on our YouTube feed, youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show. And, you know, he's tight with all those Cal Bears, so we did have to ask him about Aaron Rodgers. And it was 1 week ago today that Brett Favre came on this radio show, television show, and dropped that news about what he thought of Jordan Love getting drafted. And we asked Michael Silver what he thought, because, you know, I think, didn't ESPN rerun the Fail Mary game?
This Monday.
This past Monday. Where the ESPN cameras caught Michael running up to Aaron as the game was over. Aaron's walking off, and you could see him mouth the famed WTF word.
Sure did.
And he said he hasn't spoken to Rodgers about it, but that, to use, I guess, the Dion phrase that Dion said last Thursday when he was on this show, that a dog shouldn't be afraid of a cat. And he basically said that Aaron's not concerned. But he is probably getting his mind going on this,
probably annoyed.
Just like Favre said. How about all that? So that's all sitting on our YouTube feed. We've got Michael Wilbon coming up in about 15 minutes' time to talk about the Last Dance, right? He's all over this.
All over it.
Native Chicago. And of course, we'll have to ask him about what appears to be Mitchell Trubisky's last dance in Chicago.
Maybe.
Right? Is Nick Foles the Jerry Krause in this? I'm trying to... What role is Foles here? All right.
Foles is co-coach.
Dennis Quaid will be on the program. He's got a new podcast called the Dennissance. And this, man, one of the many reasons why I love doing this show. I'm a big fan of Dennis Quaid. He's been on the show before. He will come back on the show. We will get him to tell a Lawrence Taylor story from Any Given Sunday. We will go down a little bit of a wormhole on The Rookie. Everybody's All-American. What a neat movie that is. Just the sports movies that Dennis has been in. But his guest today, every Wednesday is when the latest episode of the Dennissance podcast drops, as the kids say. And his guest today is Albert Pujols.
All right.
That's kind of where'd that come from?
I don't know.
Where's the Dennis Quaid Albert Pujols connection from?
Because Dennis Quaid, not from St. Louis.
Okay.
He's a Texas guy.
I don't know. I mean, Dennis has been around. So Albert Pujols is on the show. With Dennis. Not with us, but, day is young. So that's how we're rolling today. 844-204-RICH is the number to dial. We'll have more than enough time to take your phone calls today. Our poll question is sitting at Rich Eisen Show because, again, everything is so Last Dance focused. Everything is new again. I mean, ESPN is, in fact, treating this as if it is a live sporting event. During the Michael Silver interview, I looked up, because we've got our sports mix here at the Rich Eisen Show on the campus of AT&T/DirecTV, where we've been since our inception in October of 2014. And I looked up at the sports mix here, and during the Michael Silver interview, I'm paying rapt attention. Okay, just understand this. I mean, the stories that he was telling about Rodman will make your hair turn different colors, like Rodman. But I did see a 1998 version of me pop up on the screen, and that's, peripherally, I'll catch that, because they're doing flashback sports centers from this day in 1998, where on this day, B.J. Armstrong and the Charlotte Hornets, coached by Celtics legend Dave Cowens, if you remember this, beat the Bulls to even a series at 1 apiece. And also on that day, Kerry Wood struck out 20, I believe, Houston Astros. And I do remember just being in the Sports Center newsroom that day, watching it all happen. Wow. And the wiffle ball type movement on his off speed, on his curves and his off speed was, we were just like, what the hell is happening? And it was in Wrigley, and just one of those Wrigley Field games when Kerry Wood's very special, and that's obviously in a time where Cubs fans are latching on to anything that could be a flash of a possibility that could lead to you-know-what. That finally did happen a few years ago. And they had a couple of Sports Center anchors of the current day sitting in front of a green screen of the old golden Sports Center set that I used to sit with Stewart in front of. And then they popped up who did the Sports Center that day. There I am with hair.
And when you see yourself with hair,
yes, Chris,
what goes through your mind?
Oh my God, there I am with hair.
Yeah. That's it?
Yeah, I mean, or, actually, how handsome of a fine wine I am right now these days.
Or you think, what could be again?
Like Deion Sanders wants me to do. He wants me to restore in the worst way, to be a comeback player of the year, as he said. He's a comeback player of the year 2 years ago. But our poll question is based off of The Last Dance, because I'm getting I am getting some phone calls. Susie and I, hanging our shingle out here in Los Angeles, we're getting some phone calls from people saying, hey, what about an idea for a Last Dance in football? And that's why I'm turning to you about this, because it's also an interesting this day in history as well. Christopher, what is our poll question that's been up there for an hour at Rich Eisen Show?
Yeah, hit it right now on our Twitter page. Which Last Dance style doc would you guys like to see next? Brady Belichick Patriots, the 90s Cowboys, Shaq Kobe Lakers.
And Michael Silver, we asked that question of him, and he said he covered the 80s and 90s 49ers. He would add that to the mix. And we're taking phone calls at 844-204-RICH if anybody out there. Or you could tweet us at Rich Eisen Show as well if we've missed anybody. And it's got to be damn good for Brockman to even consider to take this poll down and put up another one. And the 80s, 90s...
We could make it football only, I guess.
No, I don't think so. You could, because we could make it just football only. Like, which football one would you want to see?
I guess we could tweak it.
I don't know. You could, because the Kobe Shaq Lakers is another version of this. It would be the natural sequel. You know, how you always want to take somebody. We had Eric Stone Street on a couple weeks ago. He said that you haven't seen the last of Cam from Modern Family. You take one character from a popular show and you see what's happened to that character afterwards. Better Call Saul, right? You got Jonathan Banks on. Frasier's not a bad one, right? Yeah. Frasier took Frasier from Cheers. By the way, we watched The Voice last night on the NBC, and a commercial for Peacock comes up, which is the streaming service that's coming soon, with all the great, NBC Universal movies and TV shows. We saw Sam and Diane kissing each other from Cheers, and I turned to Susie. I'm like, should we show the kids Cheers? I'm like, yeah, we're going to do that.
A Sam Malone prequel would be amazing.
About his baseball career,
yeah. And then how it all made Malone and how it all ended.
Went down, and how he opened a bar where everybody knows your name.
That would be cool.
But the Kobe Shaq Lakers would be the natural sequel to The Last Dance. Phil leaves and turns into a champion, a guy whose incredible natural abilities at a young age would put him right out there on the stage. His competitive, burning desire, rubbing people the wrong way, needing to have him understand the concept of team, going to Los Angeles, putting his own reputation on the line to try it again. Don't you think that's the natural extension of The Last Dance would be the Kobe Shaq?
Yes, because you also get the sense of those Lakers teams that it ended a little too soon. I know the Pistons did beat the Lakers in the finals.
Right.
But you feel like, Shaq was kind of driven out of town, so to speak, by Kobe. So you feel like they didn't reach their full potential.
And there's also something that you want to see behind the scenes there.
And there's a lot of drama. There was a lot of drama with those
I think
teams.
they've talked a lot about it, publicly and before Kobe's untimely demise. I still can't believe, every time I say that out loud, I still can't believe it, that happened in January. As we're getting set to go to the Super Bowl. And then, of course, again, Michael Silver wanted the 80s, 90s 49ers involved. He told a great story because in the way that The Last Dance is resonating for many reasons, there's no live sports. We're eager in nostalgia. Jordan is Jordan. That it's also interesting because we are seeing Brady leave New England, a dynasty ending, and he's starting somewhere else. And there is some connective tissue between current headlines and GOATs and The Last Dance. And then Jordan Love pops up, by the way, 13 days ago in the draft for Green Bay, leading to a week ago today, Favre appearing on this show and talking about how Rodgers was a little surprised, and Favre prognosticates that Rodgers isn't going to finish his career in Green Bay based on all this. But Silver points out that the reason why the 80s and 90s Niners should be chronicled like this is because the Love-Rodgers dynamic and even the Favre-Rodgers dynamic, as bad as you think that was, he's like the young Montana dynamic is telling them to hold a beer. That he told a great story, and it's, again, on youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show, that Steve Young once asked Aaron Rodgers about the year he won his MVP. Aaron Rodgers won the MVP in 2010, as we all know, winning a Super Bowl eventually as well. That Young asked Rodgers, where was Favre when you won your MVP? And Rodgers says, I don't know, like Mississippi, I guess. And Young's like, great, because when I won my first MVP, Joe Montana was on the sideline staring at me the whole time. How'd you like that documentary? With Bill Walsh involved and the DeBartolo family involved and Jerry Rice. You want to talk about competitor? Like what we're seeing about Jordan? That's Rice. the competitor that you see in Jerry Rice. When Jerry Rice ran the Run Rich Run this year for charity, he did not want to lose. That guy didn't want to. I mean, you saw the competitor in him come out, just running for charity. And I'll just tell this quick story, and then we'll go to break because Michael Wilbon's going to join. And then your phone calls 844-204-RICH. Here's a great story. I'm doing the Pro Bowl in Hawaii with NFL Network years ago, and we got Jerry Rice and Emmitt Smith together. All-time leading rusher. I think he was going to become the all-time leading rusher. He had just become the all-time leading rusher. And then, of course, Jerry Rice, the all-time leading everything, together. And we got him for 2 segments. We were poolside. I remember we were poolside. We didn't do it on the beach at the old hotel where all the players were at. We did it poolside. And there's me, there's Jerry, and there's Emmitt. And I threw it to break, saying, we'll be right back. One more segment with these 2 all-time greats. And we'll talk about which one of these Dancing with the Stars contestants actually won the competition and which one did not.
Exactly.
Oh, no.
I remember this.
Emmitt laughs.
Yes.
Jerry did not. And I feel the heat. And it's not from the Hawaiian sun. Go to commercial break. I look up, and Jerry Rice is still staring at me. And I'm like, Jerry, it's a tease. It's just having fun. And he goes, uh-huh.
He was mad.
And then he finally smiled like 30 seconds in, but he let me broil in my own sweat for a bit.
He was mad.
Oh, yeah, man. 844-204-RICH, number to dial here on the Rich Eisen Show. Michael Wilbon when we come back. Dennis Quaid, hour 3. Your phone calls throughout. 844-204-RICH, live on a Wednesday. So do we call Michael Wilbon? Do we call him? Do we call Mike Wilbon?
Stand by.
Or does he call us? Because that's very important, because my poker buddy Murph just called into the guest line, and it's got to be free for Michael Wilbon.
We call him.
Oh, we call him? Great. Murph, you can't squat on the guest phone line like that, Murph. You there?
He's there. I brought him up.
Did you really?
He's up. Murph, where are you?
Murph, are you there? What's worse? A poker buddy taking up the guest phone line.
Man, you gotta hang
or
up.
then you take him, hang up, disconnect
We gotta
him.
hang up on Murph.
He's
And then disconnect him.
See you,
He's
bro.
done.
What's worse? Your poker buddy takes up your guest phone line when your guest is about to call in, and then you take him and he doesn't answer.
I mean,
Guest line squatting.
you had one shot.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to give him grief.
I mean, he was, you heard it. There was open air. He was.
A lot of people want to talk draft right now. I love
Is that
it.
right?
Oh, yeah. We got
I love it.
Chiefs, Vikings,
man.
some Jets.
The draft was 2 weeks ago, and people still want to call in and talk about it, which I absolutely adore. I love it. So everybody on hold, stay on hold. We call Wilbon. Can Adam call Wilbon right now?
Wait,
please?
Murph is back.
All right.
Murph's
All right,
back.
Murph, you there?
Yeah,
Murph,
I'm here, Rich.
Murph, you're taking up the guest fan line. I need this one free. Wilbon's calling in.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to call back?
You know what, Murph? I do want you to call back. Can you call back in about 20 minutes' time? Can you fold this hand, Murph? Would you mind folding the nuts right now? Because I know you know what the nuts are on this Favre story. You're a big Packer fan. I know you know what the nuts is, but you have to fold them right now. Okay?
All right. I don't have a very good starting hand, so I'm into it, Rich.
Okay,
I'll
very
talk to you
good.
later.
You'll suck out on the river in about 20 minutes, just like normally. Oh, there you go. There's Murph.
Wow.
That's fantastic.
Diehard Wisconsin. He's the you know what hole that was texting me during the Michigan-Wisconsin game.
Oh, of course it was. Of course it was.
Huh?
With friends like that, who needs enemies?
Oh, yeah. There's a ton of the guys in the poker game that would be would fall into that category right there. So, all right, let's get Michael Wilbon on the horn. 844-204-RICH, number to dial. Where are we right now on the poll question so far? Because I hit it with a nice retweet.
It's pretty split so far.
I love it. That's great. We love split polls.
It's pretty split. Patriots 40%. Cowboys 28. Shaq, Kobe, Lakers 32.
They want somebody wants a documentary on the Redskins. The reason why I see it is they tweeted at you and
Well, I responded.
You went at the fact that Belichick's a better coach than Gibbs.
I mean, Gibbs over Belichick is a scorching hot take.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that one too.
Hey, 3 Super Bowls. He's a Hall of Famer, deservedly so. Famously 3 different quarterbacks, but to say he's a better coach than Belichick.
All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back in a second. Welcome back to the Rich Eisen Show. Pleased to have here on the program. Let's get right to it because nothing I could say could be any more interesting than the conversation I love to have with this guy every time he calls in. I'm thrilled to call him a friend. He is a guy who has been all over this Last Dance for good reason because he is a big Chicagoan and a big Chicago sports guy by way of the Washington Post. And pardon the interruption, the great Michael Wilbon. How are you, sir?
Rich, I'm good. I'm hanging in there and trying to have a good mood most days. It's good to hear your voice.
Right back at you. I'm loving this Last Dance. I wonder what you feel about it since you're all over it. And obviously, the people who I've been talking to, it's been about 1.5 years or 2 years maybe since they actually sat down for these interviews, and now you're seeing it. Are you learning anything from this, Michael?
Yeah, and mine was much more recent than that. It was less than a year. It seems my time. My ability to judge time is sometimes off, but I think it was last fall. I think it was October, November, somewhere in there. Maybe it was a little earlier than that. But I am Rich. And I wasn't around it every single day. I mean, in the Chicago guys, we see Sam Smith interviewed, Mark Vancil, guys like that. They were around it every day. I was around it. And there were a bunch of us, like David Aldridge, who you see a lot in it, and myself, and, Mark Heitzler of the LA Times. There were a bunch of us who were around it all the time. And when I say all the time, I mean we dipped in and out. Jack McCallum of Sports Illustrated, David Dupree of USA Today. We were you covering the NBA then meant your sports editor would look at you if you were somewhere else too much and say, "I'm sorry, what are you doing there? Jordan's not there." And that's what the obligation was, the responsibility was. And by the way, who hated that? We all loved it. So it was great. But there are things, because I wasn't there every day. Like, I never knew that Phil Jackson was told directly to his face by Jerry Krause, you can go 82-0 and you're still not there.
That's unbelievable.
Wasn't that, is that not a killer line? Like, who has ever been told that in the history of sport? And so there's some things, there's some things that I just go, wow. And I knew I was looking forward to it. I said going in, one of the reasons I was so much looking forward to it was, yes, I want to see in greater detail the things I knew about or thought I knew about, but I knew there'd be things I didn't know about because I wasn't there every day. And I enjoy seeing that. It's fascinating. It's even fascinating the things that you know the second time through.
I know. And then, I lived it on the SportsCenter set, covering The Last Dance pretty much every night. Or at least watching Stewart do it because he got all the Jordan highlights. There was no chance I was going to get any Jordan highlights sitting next to Stu. But just
what a shock.
I know, right? But I just remember, though, that we were talking all the time about how in the hell is this team not going to be kept together? At some point, Jordan's going to just come out and say, I'm coming back. And Reinsdorf will just tell Jerry Krause to stand down. And Phil is going to stay. And then it just didn't happen. And I'm wondering if you're, I'm seeing Jordan sitting in a hotel room basically saying that he's done with this life. How difficult it is to just be surrounded by this life all the time, sitting by himself. Was there any shot of keeping this team together now that we're watching this back right now, Michael?
I think there was, because I know here's why I think there was, Rich. The simple reasoning that Michael wanted to play. I mean, how many times have you seen him say to me, and quoting him now, to me, we should do this until somebody beats us. I mean, he said that any number of times. He said it publicly at the time. He said it privately at the time. He has said it certainly said it to me. I mean, I said it to him the last time I talked to him pretty recently, a couple weeks ago. I said, I still can't believe it. I just said what you said. I said, I can't believe this. And he said, I said to him, would you have just not come back at all if I had some condition? And he said, no, you come back until somebody beats you. And this is just like the basic tenet of playground basketball, right? The winners got next. You don't leave. Even if you come back the next day, you got the court. Somebody else has to sit and wait. Somebody has to beat you. And I know that's the way he felt because he's told any number of people any number of times. So I was hoping, I'm not going to say I thought, because by the time it went down, it was just clear that you have to remember, part of this is money. So it's always money, right, Rich?
Right.
I mean, there was so much money to be paid out. They were going to have to pay Phil an amount of money that they probably didn't want to pay Phil. They're going to have to pay Scotty, a free agent, an amount of money they didn't want to pay Scotty. And Michael at that point had gone from making like $3 million when he came back. I know they're going to get into that more, I presume. But $3 million. Michael Jordan was making $3 million.
That's crazy, Michael. So the question then is, was Krause just doing Reinsdorf's bidding? Couldn't Jerry Reinsdorf essentially have said, you know what, I'm looking around right here. I'm seeing the United Center right now. We'd be absolutely crazy to do this. He's a sports owner of two sports. He knows what an absolute unicorn he had in front of him, not just in Jordan, but in terms of everything that was surrounding him and the ticket situation that was chronicled so well this past weekend. You know, like, so what's the dynamic here? Was Krause just doing Reinsdorf's bidding? Or?
Part of the dynamic you have to keep in mind, Jerry Reinsdorf at the time owned about 13% of the Bulls, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
He was not the majority owner. This is not like Jerry Jones. I mean, Jerry Reinsdorf, he had, they're major, not just shareholders. They're major investors, people who owned, reasonable percentages, less than him. But what did they want to do? And I know some of them, they're still there. And I'd have to ask him, but I don't know that Jerry could just make that decision, make that call on his own where he says, okay, we're going to spend this amount of money. Because remember, when I mentioned the amount of money that had to be covered, Jordan was going to make, $30 million for a third straight year? Because that's what he got in 97 and 98 after coming back in 96 at like $3 million. So if Jordan goes to 35 or 40 or whatever it is, I don't know at that time that the others, Reinsdorf's partners, were going to sign off on that. Listen, I could be overestimating that part of the role in this. But when it was evident by the time we got to this that it was going to take some enormous rerouting of the thinking and planning to bring them back for a seventh time. And Rich, that would have been the year I really wanted to see that because that was a shortened year, remember?
Mm-hmm.
There were only 50 games that year. Was it 50 or 60? I think it was 50. That was 99 was a labor situation, and they didn't come back until late. And so you would think that the Bulls, more than anybody else, could have been just ready to rock and roll with a shortened year. Jordan and a team that Krause was thinking was too old. How easy would it have been for them to get up for that?
No doubt. Michael Wilbon here on the Rich Eisen Show. I want to give you the floor on Isaiah Thomas because I know you had some comments and then you tweeted about those comments and Isaiah, and because this is still is raw. The dream team scenario and what's going on. With Isaiah, it's amazing. It's 2020, and these are raw emotions still, Michael.
They are, Rich. It is amazing. It's 22 years later. And wait. The selection of the Dream Team is 29 years later.
Right.
Last Dance is 22. Selection of the Dream Team, which happened in 91, is 29 years later. I was flipped. I said on the jump that 9 of the 12 guys didn't want Isaiah Thomas. And I was flipped, and it was inaccurate. I was being flipped and exaggerating something, embellishing something. I should have done. And I realized that a couple of people mentioned it to me. People in the basketball industry today that we still interact with, and they said, you said this, and I said immediately, I didn't need any prodding. I was wrong. I shouldn't do this. And I talked to Isaiah afterward. He was very, 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 very gracious. I said, Isaiah, this is wrong. I was wrong. I apologize. I'm going to apologize on Twitter. I'm going to apologize to you because I know this is not a pleasant thing for him. You talk about raw emotions. It's not. Because let's look, what the part, and Isaiah never lobbies to have been on the team. He never does that. But what I know is bothersome, Rich, is that people looking at it now probably take away that, oh, well, he wasn't worthy. He wasn't, like, in their class. Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. He was. Because he won 2 championships. Remember, at that point, Michael and Scotty, when that team had won, they'd only won 1. Isaiah had won 2. And so David Robinson had won none. And so you go back into all these things, but regardless of that, so Isaiah, if we're talking about his place in basketball history, that's one thing. The Dream Team was another, but again, it wasn't 9 out of 12 who didn't want him. And I shouldn't have said it. And so that's why I tweeted out that I shouldn't have said it. It was wrong. It was, mean-spirited, and I shouldn't have done it.
Well, but there's still there's some there. I mean, obviously your number may be off, but, there's no – I guess there's no doubt that if Isaiah shook Jordan's hand at the end of the 91 series, he might have been in Barcelona. Wouldn't you agree? I know that there's a lot of hard feelings.
I don't know that there was one. Was that the tipping point? Considering it had just happened like 3 months earlier, 4 months earlier, maybe that was a tipping point. And yes, and the narrative is Isaiah. He, like I said, he was very gracious, and he said to me, "All right, so we need to count up how many it was actually." And he was in a fine mood, a better mood than I would have been if I had been on the other end of the bar. But yeah, I mean, how many was it? I don't know. I don't know the knows how many, but the narrative, Jordan waved his hand and said, "This is not going to happen," is also inaccurate. And so there's layers. That's inaccurate because by the time Rod Thorne, and I don't know if David Stern was involved in the phone call, but by the time Rod Thorne called Michael Jordan back, and Jordan said yes, you already had Magic and Bird at the very least, and I don't know how many others. And it had, I mean, we've all been told it's already been decided. And so again, look, one of the things I would tell students in any journalism one-on-one class,
yes.
you did it wrong. If you're inaccurate, then apologize, correct it. Apologize if you got it wrong, and I did. So does that mean that there were every single guy was waiting to welcome Isaiah on the Dream Team? No, it didn't mean that. But my takeaway from all this, Rich, and yours too, is that it's amazing that I'm glad to hear guys say on camera this was like summer camp for them. And it was like summer camp. They thought they're going to have a good time. I don't know that they were in advance. They were having the impact on basketball globally. That they were going to recreate. That they were going to be the greatest marketing push, I don't know, maybe any sport has ever seen for 6 weeks' time. I don't know that they knew that going in. They wanted to play golf. They wanted night. They wanted to go to the best restaurants. Magic still goes there every summer. Magic summer vacation every summer. I've been last summer. I was there for part of it in Magic's event. I was there for part of it. He goes every summer. He loves it. It is the greatest time of their lives. So, but I don't know that they knew that going in. It was an assignment, a great one. It was a privilege. It was summer camp. But, man, it turned into something else.
Sure did. Michael Wilbon here, co-host with Tony Kornheiser on Pardon the Interruption. And you can also check out Michael's columns every single Monday about the previous Last Dance at undefeated.com. He's here on the Rich Eisen Show. Last one for you on this. You said you spoke to Jordan a couple weeks ago. Look, the footage has been sitting there apparently in the NBA vault for forever, and they needed Jordan's okay. Jordan gave the okay. Why do you think he gave the okay? Why do you think the Last Dance exists?
Well, I know why, actually, because that was I sort of thought I knew why once he did say yes, and then there's just a direct question answer. I mean, a big part of it, Rich. Now I'm sure there's if you sat him down, there'd be 24 reasons. But so much of Michael knows that so much of what is talked about with his leadership among even young players, today's NBA players. People talk about how hard he was on teammates, and people talk about the fights and the practices, which, by the way, as you know, took place a lot more 35 years ago than they do now. And so his style of leadership, how hard he was on the players, what he said to them, the story about Scott Burrell, all that stuff. Michael always thought when people like me and those other people I mentioned said, hey, can I put this on the record? Can we talk about this week? No, I don't want to do that. Why not? Because people are not going to understand. They're not going to understand why I did what I did at the time I did it. It's been years ago now, whatever the conversation was, 8 years ago, 15, now 20. And Jason Hare said to him, okay, you don't think people will understand. You're probably right. Make them understand. This is your chance. Why not take the chance to make them understand? To sit down and explain to people why you did what you did the way you did. And Michael said, yeah, maybe so.
So does he like what this is? When you spoke to him a couple weeks ago, does he like it? Does he appreciate? Is he?
I think he
mission
was
accomplished.
I think he was in a wait and see mode.
Mm-hmm.
He said something flip, which I'm going to take as being flip and funny, and he just said, "I really hope doing this, it's going to show some people why things unfolded the way they did, why I did some things I did, why some things happened the way they did." And he paused and said, if it doesn't, then I will just have wasted everybody's time.
Well, I guess in that regard, I love that because, I mean, in regards to that, Michael, I think the next couple of weeks is going to be the payoff, certainly with his first retirement coming to the fore and what people believe was behind his first retirement as opposed to what has already been laid out about leading up to the post-first three-peat. I guess we're going to get to that, right? Over the next couple
we got to some of that already.
Right.
And I think, again, there's just bits and pieces of things that I remember at the time thinking, this is pretty fascinating. And there's some of us individually, Rich, who again, people who were around that Michael got to know after a period of years, and I mean years, that, he might say to you in an off-the-record conversation, here's why I did what I did. Here's what I think is the reason for that. And I'm not the only one who would say, hey, listen, can I write about that? Can I talk about that? And he would say, no. I don't want to deal with this publicly. I don't think people are going to understand. And it was very, reasoned and thought out and explained at the time. And I didn't think it was ever really going to happen. I didn't expect to see. I didn't know they had this much footage. I didn't know in the details of that. But I just didn't think that he would necessarily sit down. I think the real seeing Michael Jordan just sit with a cigar and talk about all these things, Dennis Rodman and their relationship and what happened the time he went to Vegas, all of that stuff. I think the real power in the documentary is seeing a guy who was the most famous person in the world for X number of years sit and talk about the ins and outs of why this stuff happened. That's the attraction I have to it, even having known some of it.
Me too, Michael. I mean, it's been amazing. And then just to see him talk about how Clyde Drexler was a problem for him entering an NBA Finals, but it irritated him to be compared and have him compared, have Drexler compared to him. It just shows you how incredibly competitive he was and what a totally different athlete and competitor he is compared to so many others. And do you give credence to the fact that Jordan agreed to do this on the day LeBron won in Cleveland? Do you give any credence that Jordan, it was kind of firing a shot across the current generation's bow?
None.
Okay.
None. I'm going to mention it. Okay, this is an off-the-record thing, which he would probably frown at me for telling it, but I'm going to tell it. So there are times earlier in LeBron's career, and sort of sprinkled throughout, where people got critical of LeBron, whether it was the decision or whether it was a play, passing off to Danielle Marshall, whatever. And people think Michael Jordan resents LeBron. To me, there's evidence to the contrary in that there'd be a phone call. And I'd answer the phone, and this is what I'd hear on the other end. Hey, don't take a shot at LeBron. That's just garbage. This kid is great. There's no need to take a shot at him. And he's with that garbage is playing out with him knowing it's not going to be repeated. It's not going to be told on PTI. It's not going to be written about in the Washington Post or on ESPN.com. And so that happened. And that happened with young players that Michael liked, occasionally, somewhere between occasionally and frequently. Defend Russell Westbrook, Steph Curry. Early on, people think, oh, Curry's not going to. There were certain players that Michael would call and say, hey, stop. This is nonsense. Or if I knew the person, hey, man, tell your boy he's wrong. LeBron James is going to be one of the great players of all time. So the notion that Michael resents LeBron or he planned it out, that first of all, it goes against everything else we're saying. I mean, I know people think it plugs into the competitiveness angle. I don't think that plugs in at all. Because when Michael talks about taking on other players, it was on the court. It's Clyde Drexler, the bad boy Pistons. It's on the court. And remember, LeBron has proclaimed himself the greatest ever. He did that on his own platform. Michael, in an interview with me that appeared 17 minutes live on SportsCenter, Rich, the morning of his Hall of Fame induction, Michael said, you can look it up, it's on YouTube. He says, I'm never going to consider myself that. I'm not going to say I'm better than Bill Russell or Kareem or Magic or Larry, I think were the four players he named. I think he named Julius as well. And he said, I'm not going to, because I said to him, it's important for you to be known as the greatest player ever. And he said, no, I'm not even going to say that. People can look that clip up. I have it actually on my Instagram page. And so I've heard the theory, but it goes against what I know he thinks about LeBron. Just like people thought he thought something about Kobe, and now they find out. People thought he thought a certain thing about Doug Collins, like he wanted to get rid of Doug Collins. They find out how stupid that narrative is. It was just wrong. He loved Doug Collins. He didn't even want Phil Jackson, which he said. He wanted to play for Doug. So continue to play for Doug. So my take on it, and it's just mine, is that I don't believe that. And I have not asked Michael about it. Let me be fair. I have not asked him about the timing of the yes and LeBron. But what I know that he thinks about LeBron and how great he thinks LeBron is, I don't see it that way.
All right, Michael, I love it. And just a couple quick hitters for you before I let you go. First is, how many episodes will The Last Dance of Mitchell Trubisky be? What do you got for me?
Rich,
how many episodes? That's
so cold. Rich, listen, when this comes up, and I want to come back to talk to you about whatever happens, whenever it happens with Trubisky and Foles. And I now feel bad for Mitch Trubisky. He's got a coach who doesn't want to coach him. His coach was in Kansas City when Patrick Mahomes was a rookie, and he coached him. He wants to coach Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't want to coach Trubisky. And now Trubisky is being taken down by his coach and GM who won't back him, really. Not really. And I think this is awful. I mean, Trubisky, I never thought they should have. It was a bad deal to trade up to get Trubisky. Just take him. Just take him when you take him. You had to pick. And it wouldn't have put all this pressure on him, and it wouldn't have recast him in a way to have people talk constantly about what the capital expended to get him. But what's happening with Trubisky now, man, it's just wrong. It's just wrong, Rich. I don't care what people say. I know all the executives will defend other executives. It's just wrong to treat Trubisky this way. It's wrong to do it publicly. And you know what? If they coach him hard, to use a Michael Jordan phrase, if they coach him hard and he's not up to it, then let him go. C'est la vie. But they haven't done that. They haven't done that. This guy doesn't want to coach him. I know that from players who were in Kansas City at the time. He didn't want to coach him. So he wants to coach somebody else. So just be honest and say that. But I'm now like the last person defending Mitch. I just want Mitch Trubisky to have a fair chance. I think there's more talent in him than apparently they do, and they moved up. They moved heaven and earth to trade up ahead of Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. They made that move, and now they can't. I can't stand when people won't own what they did. And that's what I feel coming out of Chicago. That's what I feel coming out of the coach and the GM. Own what you did. Don't blame it all on this kid.
Well, you keep talking like that, they are going to sit you down for The Last Dance of Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, you're going to be.
I hope he's good enough. I hope he's accomplished enough to have a last dance. I am rooting, and I like Nick Foles, and I'm glad they got him. I'm rooting for Mitch Trubisky to just, throw a monkey wrench in this whole thing. Whatever they got planned, it doesn't seem to include him.
Right. And then before I let you go, ask the poll question of Michael Wilbon, and then we'll let him go on his good Wednesday. Christopher.
All right, Wilbon, which Last Dance style doc would you like to see next? One about the Brady Belichick Patriots, the 90s Cowboys, or the Shaq Kobe Lakers?
Shaq Kobe Lakers. Because the thing is, and by the way, Belichick and Brady, like if you promise me they're going to both sit down, then I might change my mind. But I don't want to say all basketball figures are more interesting. But because Belichick we see with Belichick with 100. Rich knows. Rich, those episodes are so great. By the way, I haven't even called you to say. Maybe I texted you to say how much I love him.
Thanks, Michael.
Belichick, when he wants to be engaged, I know because I've had dinner with Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
When he wants to be engaged, there's no on to Cincinnati. He's the guy you most want to listen. He's riveting. His control, his mastery of the history of football. You always want to hear Belichick for real, but I don't know what I'm going to get. So, but you know what? We can't have Shaq Kobe now either. I mean, for the reason that we obviously know we can't have Shaq Kobe because we can't have Kobe. And so, I guess really, I'm now saying, and by the way, any of that would be interesting. I don't care about the Cowboys. I really don't. I'm not as fascinated by the Cowboys as my dear friend Stephen A. is on a daily basis.
He's obsessed. I love
Dak is going to get paid. I don't care whether Dak's going to get $31 million or 4 times that. I don't care. And I know we're going back to the Aikman, Irvin, and I love those guys, and Emmett and Jimmy. I do. I did care about them. So you know what? I'm talking about myself. And that's a good poll question, you guys.
There you go. There you go.
Dancing, and I can't figure it out. I think I'm gonna go. I think I'm going to go Patriots, but if I could have my druthers,
yes,
it'd be the Lakers. It'd be the Shaq, Kobe, Phil Jackson Lakers, man. There's so much stuff. There's so much rich material there. And sadly, we're not going to get to mine it.
Love you, Michael Wilbon. I always love our chats. Thanks for doing it. Always appreciate it. You take care.
Rich,
say hi to Mr. Tony.
Man, I love being on with you, brother. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
That's Michael Wilbon, at Real Mike Wilbon on both Twitter and Instagram. That's his Instagram as well, at Real Mike Wilbon. His columns, undefeated.com, every Monday about The Last Dance on Sundays, and he's a part of that.
Settle down just a little bit.
Okay, there you go. Well, I mean, the Stephen A. drop of how about them Cowboys is this the best. I mean, that is just because he just loves trolling on the Dallas Cowboys.
How about them Cowboys?
Oh, man, he's just that. I love that. 844-204-RICH. We will take your phone calls, and I'll chime in on the poll question myself.
All right.
That's how we're rolling when we come back on The Rich Eisen Show on YouTube, SiriusXM, and the NBCSN. That was great.
That was awesome.
So that's been the conversation, is that LeBron wins in Cleveland and Jordan takes that day to say, I'm here's a documentary, everybody. And here's Wilbon basically saying, you know what, he says this stuff off. He's saying this stuff off the record. Screw it. Here it is. I'll tell you.
Yeah,
it's the way he feels about LeBron. He's calling me up to say, hey, just because he passed up the shot, back off him. So,
do you think there's a kind of a misconception that Jordan kind of doesn't like any of these young players and thinks they're all trying to come for his greatest of all time? As Wilbon said, Michael won't even call himself the greatest of all time.
To use the Dion phrase, a dog ain't afraid of cats, right?
Right.
He's the ultimate alpha male. He's the one who went into Monte Carlo at the Dream Team practice and took it over and let everybody know and peed all over the Dream Team hydrant, to use the phrase. I mean, that's what he did.
They're all wearing his shoes.
Oh, please.
I wouldn't worry about it.
Oh, please. Our friends at Geico brought to you that interview. I love that. That was just great. I love it with Michael Wilbon. And Geico is trying to make everything easier in your world right now. Things are so tough, certainly if you own or rent your home. And if you want to learn how to make life easier and bundle your policies, bundle your homeowner or your renter's insurance along with your auto policy, go to geico.com, check out a quote, check out to see how easy they can make your life. It's Geico easy. Geico.com. That's Geico.com. 844-204-RICH. 844-204-RICH is the number to dial. All the phone lines are lit. I love it. How much time do we got till we're back on NBCSN? How much time do we back? About a minute? 1 minute back.
Minute.
Okay, so we'll wait. All the phone lines are lit. 844-204-RICH. Even my buddy Murph is back on the phone line.
Maybe.
Well, he wants to talk about the Packers and Favre and all that stuff.
He
which
might
is
be
great.
there.
Which is great. Fantastic. And then all of the phone lines. People want to talk about the draft, huh?
Yeah,
How
of
about
course.
that?
I love it.
Okay, so we've got a ton of time for phone calls as well, right? We got phone calls. We got Dennis Quaid as our only guest in our third hour.
Yep.
That's how we're rolling.
We got lots of time.
Okay, we're back in a second on NBCSN. So youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show and Sirius XM Channel 211. Viewers and listeners, we'll be back in a second. 844-204-RICH, number to dial. Phone lines are all lit. That phone call with Wilbon went a little long, but he was just on a roll. When somebody's like, okay, this is what Jordan told me off the record about LeBron, but screw it, I'm going to say it here anyway. That's when you as a host say, oh, go on.
Yes.
That's his point. It's like he would get phone calls from a certain number when LeBron was getting criticized to say, back off.
Right.
So he doesn't think there's any truth to the fact that, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm going to set my record straight with a 10-part documentary that the whole world is going to want to see and announce that the day that LeBron wins a championship in Cleveland, right? Those things are kind of also have to be pre-planned, right? You're going to announce it during an NBA Finals. That would make the idea. That would make sense, but... All right, 844-204-RICH is the number to dial here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's go to our buddy Jack in New York. He's been waiting for well over an hour. What's up, Jack?
Hey, Rich. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for making it.
I'm a fan of the show. I've got two questions for you.
Okay, brother.
My first, I'm actually a graduating senior this year up from Brockman's neck of the woods in New England from Holy Cross. What advice can you give for aspiring broadcasters like myself?
Okay.
And then secondly, how many primetime games do the Buffalo Bills get this year in your mind?
Very interesting. We're going to find that out tomorrow. I'm going to say the Buffalo Bills get at least 2. How does that sound? And that's a lot, to be very honest with you, for a team that is on the up and up, I understand, and in Western New York. I'll go 2. I'll take that as a 2. And then in terms of for advice for you, I will say this. Be yourself, okay, Jack? Don't put on any airs. The most successful people I've been around in this business are the same way off the air as they are on the air, and never take no for an answer. Never. The number of times I had doors slammed in my face, I lost track. And many people are there to tell you no, or obviously right now, as you understand what's going on in the world with COVID-19, and my sincere, I guess I would say apologies on behalf of the human race that your senior year has to be under these circumstances, and your graduation and your future potential first freshman year of college under these circumstances. Just know that, again, in this day and age, people are going to start to say that the economy has shrunk, and the answer is no. But you've got all these social media outlets and ways for you to do your own podcasts and get your stuff out there and do your stuff that I wish I had in the mid-'90s when I was starting out my career. See, there's a lot of ways for you to get around the no and front load the yes. Does that make sense to you?
Totally. Thanks, Rich, and go Holy Cross Crusaders.
There you go. That's a first in the history of this show. We've never had to go Holy Cross Crusaders.
Bills play the Chiefs, Seahawks, of course the Patriots, the Raiders.
Again,
out of schedule. There are some prime matchups
and I
there.
I know this is a raw.
49ers.
I know it's raw for those in Western New York. Again, it took me a couple of years to find out, doing NFL Network, talking as somebody from New York City, Staten Island, which is New York City, tough guy.
Technically.
Calling Buffalo upstate New York. No, it's Western New York. I get it. But it's not the largest television market. And the Bills, it's been a very long time since the Bills won a playoff game.
Rabid fan base, though.
A rabid fan base, I understand. Didn't NBC flex into a Bills game? And, man, the Bills went into Dallas and that beachfront property and spanked the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. So they're on the up and up. Maybe the first Bills-Patriots game will be I'd watch that on a Monday nighter in Western New York. First time Bill without Brady walks in there. I'd watch that one.
Yeah, the Bills are your betting favorite in the East, so they should get the best matchups.
Well, we're going to find out tomorrow night.
We'll see.
NFL Network, 8 Eastern time. What appears to be a 3+ hour long show. We're going to keep going. I'm going to read out every game.
Just still going.
I'm going to get this list. I'm going to read out every game.
Number 144.
Well, boys and girls, gather around Studio 2, the left part of my desk in my home office. Gather around, boys and girls, and let me tell you the time where the second game of week number 9 is a regional Fox game.
It will be aired in Wisconsin.
Texans, Titans.
Available in 8% of the country, boys and girls. Yes. Game number 159. And then, of course, I can add a little Dr. Seuss to it.
Sure.
The Bills and the Patriots. Who knew? How about you? On a Monday night.
In a box.
Here we go.
Fox.
Frank Gore.
Fox.
Hold on, here we go. Jets Bills. Frank Gore with Joe Tessitore. How about you? Thank you, everybody. I wish that's a walk-off, but I got one more hour to go with phone calls and Dennis Quaid on NBCSN. That is the most, in my mind, rewatchable movie there is.
Fugitive, does it hold up or what?
It does. We wanted, on behalf of fans of the film, thank you for catching the switching of the samples.
Oh, the liver samples?
Without you.
You are welcome.
RDU90.
Wow.
Harrison Ford, perhaps the most beat up movie star of all time.
Yeah,
he gets his.
Oh yeah, well he does his own stunts too. I mean that's his own damn fault.
Is that, did you do your own stunts?
I did all of my own stunts. I actually handled the liver samples with these fingers and ungloved.
Your character in 40-Year-Old Virgin Paula was originally written as a male character.
Yes, indeed, it was written for a man, and then with my eternal gratitude, Steve Carell's wife, Nancy Walls, who's a wonderful actress herself, said, because I knew them from Chicago, said, you have a lot of men in your film. Why don't you read Jane for the store manager? And so we improvised together, and we had a lot of fun. And Judd Apatow said, oh, we'll cast her. So I'm very grateful to that whole crew of people for giving me that job.
Do you remember the song you sang in that?
Yes, I do.
In Spanish, can you?
Oh, absolutely. I'll just tell you right away that this is from an ALM Spanish dialogue, or dialgo, as you call it. And it's
yes,
and it's a dialogue, and it goes like this. Cuando arreglo en mi cuarto, no encuentro nada. ¿Dónde va con tanta prisa al partido de fútbol? Thank you. And it means whenever I clean my room, I can't find anything. Where are you going with such haste to a football game? It's not romantic at all.
No, obviously. But the way it sounds.
Yeah, it's the way you deliver
it. That's it.
This is the Rich Eisen Show.
There was once a man named Rich. Talk smack, he'll put you in a ditch. He has the bling, so kiss his ring.
And he'll make you his.
What?
Live from the Rich Eisen Show studio in Los Angeles. Earlier on the show, NFL Network insider Mike Silver, co-host of ESPN's Pardon the Interruption, Michael Wilbon. Coming up, host of the Dennissance podcast, actor Dennis Quaid. And now, it's Rich Eisen.
Hour number 3 of the Rich Eisen Show, our final hour on this Wednesday here on youtube.com/Rich Eisen Show and Sirius XM channel 211. That's how you can listen to us and stream us all 3 hours. And then, of course, we love being on NBC SN, and we're here every day from 1 to 3 Eastern after my buddy Mike Tirico is done with his Lunch Talk Live program on NBC SN. We had Michael Wilbon last hour. That was just a great conversation with Michael, who's all over The Last Dance and says there is no connection to Jordan announcing The Last Dance's existence on the day that LeBron won his championship with Cleveland, that he was trying to Bigfoot LeBron with his documentary. And just so many great stories that he told from back in the day that sometimes you see on The Last Dance. He writes about it on undefeated.com the day after The Last Dance airs every Sunday night. We try to be all over it as best we can. We had Charles Barkley on Monday, and we'll hit that. I guess we'll follow up on a little part of that interview in a second in Chris Brockman's news update before Dennis Quaid joins us here. In the middle of this hour, 844-204-RICH. The phone lines are all lit, so let me take some phone calls before your news update. How does that sound to you, Christopher?
Sounds great.
And Mike Del Tufo, my buddy from New Jersey, my audio executive, is at his post as he is every single day here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's go to who's been waiting the longest here. Ty in Missouri, you've been waiting the longest here on the Rich Eisen Show. Line 1 for those scoring at Mike Del Tufo's desk area. What's going on, Ty?
Hi, I'm a big Chiefs fan. I wanted to ask you about that first-round draft pick they had.
Okay.
So I kind of didn't like the Clyde Edwards-Helaire pick. I kind of wanted them to pick J.K. Dobbins, but did you like the pick they had?
Well, a couple questions, Ty. First up, how old are you, Ty?
14.
Attaboy. You love your Chiefs, don't you?
Yeah, I have a whole bunch of Chiefs shirts, and I even have a couple Patrick Mahomes socks.
Why not? Hey, Ty, let me tell you something, man. Your Patrick Mahomes socks, they're going to fit you forever. Don't ever give up on those, and he's going to win you more trophies. And every Chiefs fan that waited 50 years and 50-some-odd years for what you just experienced as a 14-year-old will tell you, maybe you're the good luck charm. You know what I'm saying? Hey, look, I'm a Michigan Wolverine, so I saw J.K. Dobbins just absolutely destroy Michigan year in and year out, and I thought DeAndre Swift might go there as well, but Edwards-Helaire is just a dynamite football player and somebody who can come out of the backfield and do all sorts of interesting things from that position, not just running it. And if Andy Reid's the one who says, let's take him, and Brett Veach is the one who says, let's take him over everyone else, I would trust them. How does that sound?
Yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying. I mean, I'm kind of upset over it, but I see where you're going at.
Ty, hang in there, brother. You're 14. Your team won a Super Bowl. At age 14, I'm a 50-year-old man, Ty, and I'm begging for my team to even win a playoff game. Hang in there. Hang in there. You're in good shape. You're better off. It's time, Missouri.
50 years.
I've been waiting a half century. Isn't that lovely? The wonder of youth. The wonder of youth.
So good.
And speaking on the opposite end, a very creaking old man, my poker buddy Murph. Let's get him on right now on the opposite end. What's going on, Murph?
Creaking old man.
Now, I know you're upset. Are you upset with me about having Favre on, about your Packers?
I love you, Rich.
Okay.
I love you because you're in a zone, man. The interview with Wilbon was awesome.
Thanks,
and
brother.
Favre was awesome.
Thanks, man.
It's just so frustrating to be a Packer fan, and you had such a great interview, and Favre was so, I mean, where do I start? I mean, I didn't go to the Super Bowl in 2010 because I figured with the young Aaron Rodgers we were going to be back so many times.
Right.
And ever since then, it's just been, the defense every year they kept Don Capers and they kept McCarthy, and they kept Thompson, and it's like, and then this week, or 2 weeks ago, it's like they don't even try to improve the team after they paid Rodgers $120 million or whatever it is. It's just so frustrating.
So you're not a fan of the Jordan Love pick, and you do believe that Rodgers' time is now limited. You do believe in all that.
Yeah, I mean, look what the controversy they've created. Every article now coming out is what stars are going to be traded in 2021, and it's like all that shit now they have to deal with.
Careful, Murph.
Sorry.
Oh,
the last I checked, the reason we lost to San Francisco twice handily was we couldn't stop the run. So they haven't done much to support the defense, and they didn't give us any more options on the wide receiver other than the kid who came up from the practice squad last year, who I thought was pretty good. But it's like, 30 years of Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and we go to 3 Super Bowls because they just don't support people around them. It's like,
I just got friendly fire on this show, Murph. I'll chat with you on Zoom tomorrow night after I'm done with the schedule show. That's Murph. Hey, he just gave a voice. He gives voice to a lot of frustration from Packers fans.
Yeah, I know a couple.
Who sound just like that.
A couple of my buddies are,
hot.
Yeah.
Because you give the guy $100 million, and now you're already starting to look for the future. Patrick Queen was sitting there. Raheem Mostert hit his head on the goalpost just 2 minutes ago again. Oh, that's going to be, look, I'm going to do my job for NFL Network. I'm very happy to do that. I'm going to be there for the schedule release show. I might have to tap out when cards are in the air just to hear the poker gang talk about Murph cursing on my show. Oh, my gosh. My apologies to the NBCSN crew and
you'll have the
SiriusXM.
poker computer will be on
the 454s and
they love it.
And the Rich Eisen Show YouTube chat room are big Murph fans now. They love Murph. All right, now let's get some more gravitas here.
Let's make Murph a regular, someone says.
No, God, no. Can Tom Brokaw cleanse the palate here, please? Go for it, please.
And now, with a report of the day's news from the world of sports and entertainment, someone who is not a journalist or newsman by any definition of the word whatsoever, it's Chris Brockman.
Hi, Christopher.
Yeah, Murph, big fan. Okay, we talked to Charles Barkley the other day, and I just kind of picked up on it. Didn't sound like him and MJ are copacetic these days. Well, he was on Watto and Sylvie, our buddies from Chicago.
The radio show.
Radio only show, as far as I know, last night, and had this to say.
More sad than anything. Really, really sad, because the guy was like a brother to me for 20-some years, at least 20-some years. And I feel sadness, but like I say, to me, he's still the greatest basketball player ever. I wish him nothing but the best. Hey, there's nothing I can do about it, brother.
Right. There's no way it could ever get back to what it was.
Oh, he got my number. He can call me.
It would take him calling you and say, Charles, you were right and you were just doing your job. I was wrong. Does he have that capacity in him based on what you know of him?
Well, it's been a long time, so I guess not.
Charles is saying that he and Jordan are not tight anymore, and the reason why, I guess, he was critical of Jordan's ownership, being an owner in the NFL and not being able to put a team together. And
Mike, he said that Mike needed to stop hiring, his best friends to help him run the then Bobcats at the time.
It's Jordan's. That's Charles's job is to evaluate. And he evaluated his friend Jordan, who didn't take kindly to it.
Care for those
again, we are just seeing laid bare all of these long-standing relationships. It's 2020, and the dream team. You got Jordan and Barkley apparently not on the same page anymore. Jordan and Isaiah never on the same page to begin with, and that's why Isaiah wasn't there.
Yeah,
Man,
it's real interesting.
But you picked up on that. You and TJ picked up on because he said because Barkley said when we were friends is referred to Jordan.
Yep. And he just said it in
normally I
real
pick
quickly
up on
in
stuff
passing.
like that. Yeah.
And I mentioned it yesterday, and you're like,
Well, I think I got it lost in that when Cedric the Entertainer came on right afterwards and talked about the moment that Jordan grabbed a bunch of chips from from Barkley Stack as he's playing roulette at a Tiger Woods charity tournament in Vegas.
Pretty funny.
What else do you have over
All
there?
right, let's go to football here. Tua has a new Twitter handle, simply @Tua now. Also has a new number. Going to be wearing number one for the Miami Dolphins. Got a feeling that's going to be one of the hottest selling jerseys in the NFL this year.
Number 1, huh?
Number 1.
Let me see this here. The history of the number 1 uniform.
Gary Yepremian, right?
Gary Yepremian, whose name I thought of the other day. Because on Don Shula's passing, the stories that I was told about him having that, as you know, fumble of the botched field goal attempt in the Super Bowl, that the Dolphins were getting set to, they wound up being 17-0, and that the score, had Yepremian not fumbled or done that football folly and had been able to kick the ball through the uprights, the final score would have been 17-0. Instead, it was 14-7. So they could have gone 17-0 by winning the Super Bowl 17-0.
How about that?
Instead of made it a game.
There have been 8 players to wear number 1 who eventually went to the Hall of Fame. Quarterback position, Warren Moon, of course, wore number 1 all those years. Jim Thorpe, Curly Lambeau, among others.
How about also, here's some good names here, Chad Henne.
Hey.
And another individual who wasn't named Dan Marino, A.J. Feely wore number 1. Pat Devlin, another non-Marino. And here you go. The one who has worn it, pardon me, that's uniform number 7. That's my bad. People are like, what are you talking about, Rich? Fawad Rovez wore number 7. I almost, just to say his name.
You wanted to say something.
I was so excited about Fawad Rovez.
I mean, of course, Cam Newton wears 1. Kyler Murray wears number 1.
Cody Parkey wore it. Yeah. Good luck to Tua, man. And I'll tell you what, another reason why I'm one to knock on wood, if you're with me, that there's football. That Tua Tagovailoa to be a starter in this league and see what he would look like. I think it's Ryan Fitzpatrick's gig anyway. But just to see what Tua would look like in that number 1, I love it. Can't wait to get Tua back on this show. What else do you have over there, Chris?
Yeah, real quick. Sam Darnold was talking to some reporters from the New York Daily News, talking about Tom Brady leaving in the AFC East. Said, with a great player like Tom Brady, obviously a big deal, him leaving. It's headlines. Every single game in the NFL is tough, but I think any player can attest, we're not going to take any team more lightly, even though they lost one of the greatest players, if not the greatest player of all time. We're not going to take the Patriots any more lightly than we would.
I loved Sam Darnold because he's so honest and he's so pure and he's so true and he's so not fully evaluated yet. And it's just, and he's in the New York market, and you can't take anybody lightly when you haven't won anything. But he says all the right things. He's such a great front-face guy. I so want to go head over heels for Sam Darnold. I so do. I so want to sit there and say he's the future.
He's got all the ability.
Dude, what's the evaluation of him so far? He threw his first pass was a pick 6, and he came back and had one of the greatest performances the Jets have ever had on Monday Night Football against the Detroit Lions in his first career start, and that's been his best game. All right? Then he comes back and is at the end of his first year, and he hurts. He gets hurt, but he fights through it to finish up because he's a gamer. And then the Jets switch coaches on him, and now here comes a new coach who may or may not want the running back. They signed for $1 gajillion in free agency, and he gets mono. And then they win a ton of games in the back half of the season, and now, okay, let's see how we've evaluated right now. With what? With who? But everybody says he's the right guy. Trust me, this is such a Jets thing. The Jets are going to have to sit there and make a decision on, at least the Browns are going to evaluate Baker Mayfield with a significant front line upgrade and wide receivers named Odell and Jarvis. The Jets are going to have to make an evaluation on Sam Darnold, one would think, sight unseen.
I mean, Sam finished 6-2 in the second half of last year.
I know he did, but
he's played well.
Yeah.
All right, last one real quick. Jags GM Dave Caldwell, of course, a lot of discussions about Leonard Fournette. They declined his 5th-year option. been trade rumors throughout this offseason. Talked about how Leonard's going to be in their plans this year.
There was just some minor discussions about that, but nothing substantial throughout the draft or even prior to the draft. I think the mindset is that we're going to go forward with Leonard on the team. I had a good conversation with him on Friday. I know Coach Marone's had some discussions with him. He seems to be in great shape and great mental frame of mind, and we feel like that he'll have a great season this year.
When is the first team photo? That's what I want to know. When's the first team photo?
Nice. What a flip-flop, though.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, we're looking to move him. We're trying to get out of this. No fifth year.
Right,
And,
well,
we think he's going to have a great season coming up.
You don't think they try to flip him before the draft?
I'm sure they did.
And then when people are like, no thanks, we know you're not going to pick a fifth-year option up on him. We might be able to get him in free agency. And, oh, my gosh, you're seeing what the running backs are getting paid right now, which is dirt cheap. You don't think somebody thinks they can get Fournette for less than what Melvin Gordon signed in Denver?
I mean, only 24 years old.
I know.
Had 1,200 yards last year.
They're thinking of getting a bargain.
76 catches last year.
It's just something.
Dude can play.
I know he can. I guess we can evaluate him without Tom Coughlin there to maybe irritate him. I have no idea. The Dennissance podcast and your phone calls still to come here on this edition of the Rich Eisen Show. Dennis Quaid when we come back. I didn't even get a text from Murph. Sorry, I cursed on the air. I don't even get it. I mean,
wow,
on the
what are we doing?
Wouldn't you do that if you call into your friend's show? Using the guest line number, like we have given him, it's basically it's like that pass at Disney World that costs $1 million to cut the lines.
Fast pass.
You get the my
brother, we live on that.
You do, right?
Yeah,
costs a lot of money.
Costs a lot of money, but it's worth.
What else do you got to spend money on, Mike?
It's true.
What, another Olaf doll that we didn't know you actually hoarded?
I have 5 now.
A boat that can hold more than 2 people?
Here you go.
No, 3. It holds 3.
See, there you go.
I am looking at a bigger boat. I'm joking.
We are a TV show. A radio show.
Right.
We stream.
No. You got that wrong.
Oh, sorry.
We're a radio show, TV show.
Oh, got it. We stream. Call and apologize.
Right.
Like, we're everywhere. Come on now.
I know that. Doesn't even do that.
Podcasts.
Is he upset that I just hung up? You think?
That you went full Rodman?
By the way, that was great. Wasn't that great?
Yeah.
What a story that is, that Rodman just says, we're done now?
We're done.
It's kind of the opposite of the great Louis B. Waltz of Godfather fame, where he picks up the phone and says, Waltz is listening. That's the way he answers the phone. That's how he says hello.
Waltz is listening.
Waltz is listening. The opposite is just, we're done.
Click.
It's a 50-year-old reference.
Let's go to Trig in Washington, D.C. Let's take a phone call here on our SiriusXM, YouTube.com/Rich Eisen show feed. What's up, Trig?
Yes, sir. Hey. I graduated Susan Wagner back in '79.
Hey!
It's a shame you're not old enough to have experienced the guarantee and the landing on the moon. Unfortunately, I've also seen the Robert Kennedy assassination and also live injuries on the Vietnam broadcast and neighborhoods, fathers having heart attacks to seeing their sons on TV. It was an experience as a New Yorker. But I'm down in the D.C. area. I do like Wilbon. Great show. Also, too, accolades for you for doing citizenship work, giving encouragement to that young citizen.
Hey, man, out. It's my pleasure to do all that stuff.
Good, solid citizen.
Thanks, Trig. I got about a minute. I got about a minute left before NBC.
The Jets this year, man, they're going to be hot. And is Scarlett Johansson a Jets fan?
Well, I don't know. By the way, and thank you for the call, Trig. Here's where he's going there. Colin Jost is a Staten Islander, so thus
they're engaged or married.
Scarlett Johansson would be a Jet fan. And by the way, it's interesting he mentions the Jets Super Bowl win and landing on the moon in the same sentence. I think a moonshot is exactly how rare a Jets Super Bowl win is, correct?
Yes.
Every single time they land on the moon, the Jets win. That's the thing.
We're going there soon again.
If the only chance the Jets have is the Space Force, basically. The Space Force, we got to get it. We got to get back on the moon, and the Jets can win it again. I think that's what Trig just said, right?
Call up Elon Musk or something.
Right? Let's get Elon Musk involved. All right, Dennis Quaid when we come right back. Welcome back to the Rich Eisen Show. He has been in a ton of films that we all love, and for certainly sports fans, The Rookie, Any Given Sunday, also Everybody's All-American, and Breaking Away is one of the most beautiful films of all time, and it's obviously about cycling as well. This man is also got his own podcast called The Dennissance, which premiered earlier in April and airs every single Wednesday with a new episode. And the episode that becomes available today is with Albert Pujols. He is the host of the Dennissance, Dennis Quaid, back here on the show. How are you, Dennis?
Great. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How do you know Albert Pujols, Dennis? Let me just jump in right here on this.
Yeah, I've had a very lucky life, Rich. I've been able to meet a lot of very interesting people in my life.
Yes.
And those are the people I have on the Dennissance. Albert Pujols, I did a movie in the Dominican Republic last year, and that's where he's from. He has a foundation where he helps support and improve the lives of people who are living in what they call bates in the sugarcane fields there. And I decided to get involved because he was the job that he was doing. And, of course, I've always been a fan of him from baseball, and so I went to one of his foundation galas last year, and we became acquaintance friends, and the relationships developed. And I thought he'd be a very interesting guest.
And give me a little preview. What do you guys talk about? Do you talk about a possibility of a baseball season, or do you just talk about life in general? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
About whether there is going to be baseball and when it's going to be and what it's going to be and how this has affected him. He's, could arguably be the oldest guy in baseball right now out there playing, and what it's going to do to his season and the records that he would be able to achieve.
That's
and
right.
It's. And he's just a Hall of Fame guy. That's as a person to begin with, and he's a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame. That's for sure.
No doubt about that. I mean, and as you point out, a Hall of Fame person. Do you want to tease? Does he think that there's going to be a baseball season, Dennis?
Everybody wants to still think that way. Everybody's training that way. They're at home or whatever they can do. They were preseason in Arizona when they just sent everybody home.
Right.
It's like how disheartening for all of us. I've heard talk about that. They may do a season of baseball, but in Arizona.
Yep.
All the teams would be in Arizona or in Florida, and there would be no. They would disregard the National League and American League and basically play each other geographically, I think. Is that what you've heard as well?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just so up in the air, and man, it's funny because I'm watching on ESPN every now and then. They've got South Korea's baseball league, which has been able to be up and running. It's not nearly as large a country, obviously, and not nearly as large of a league as Major League Baseball. But I'm just seeing the pitches and the crack of the bats and the swings and the home runs, and I'm like, oh my God. I took it for granted.
I saw it yesterday, too, and a shot of adrenaline went through me.
That's right. I felt the same thing, too, Dennis. You know what I mean? And I know you're a golfer, too, and it's possible to get golf back in June. And I know that Tiger and Phil are going to team up with Brady and Peyton Manning in a couple of weeks. And I can't wait for that possibility, too.
Right. What are they going to do, like a skins game? Is that what they're going to do?
It looks like it. It looks like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Dennis Quaid here on the Rich Eisen Show. The Dennissance podcast can be gotten where all podcasts are gotten, and it's been out there since the early part of April, and it runs all the way through the early part of June. You can check him out with Albert Pujols today. Are you going to have Lawrence Taylor on there? You going to get LT on your podcast, Dennis?
Hey, that's a really good idea. Thanks for bringing that up. It'd be a very, very interesting guest. LT. I did Any Given Sunday with LC and also Jim Brown, It might be. Hey, how about a reunion show with that? That would be good. And Jamie Foxx.
Yes, that would be good.
My memory of doing that movie would be every morning, because Oliver Stone didn't really like to start shooting until kind of around noon at that time. But we all had to be ready before. But so it got to be where at dawn we would meet at Doral. We shot it, down near Miami. Meet at Doral. The foursome was myself, Jim Brown, LT, and Jimmy Woods. And we would go out and do battle on the golf course before we went to work. I had such a great time shooting that movie.
Well, maybe Oliver Stone was told by Lawrence Taylor, "I'm not available until noon." I mean, that could have been it. It could have been LT just telling him what time.
Lawrence Taylor is available anytime. He would show up. He would show up in just like house clothes, shorts, kind of like gym shorts and flip flops,
right?
And wear two gloves, and it doesn't matter how much sleep he'd had, he could hit the ball, man.
Yeah,
that guy was a competitor.
Who's the best?
So you had the greatest offensive player and the greatest defensive player, arguably, of all time.
That's true.
Out there, on the golf course.
Out there teeing off. Who was the best? Who's the best athlete player you've ever played with, Dennis? From maybe
athlete player?
Yeah, at golf.
As far as golfing?
Yes, sir. That you've ever been paired up with.
Well, yeah, LT was really good. I mean, he was like a 6 coming out there, and he could get it done. There's such a competitor. Jim Brown at that time was actually really good as well. Really, really good.
Well, I mean, with Jim could.
But Troy Aiken was excellent, and
those quarterbacks.
And. There's been a number of them.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Baseball players, especially pitchers, make really good golfers because they don't have to work every day.
That's right. Every fifth day they get out there, and 4 days in between. I mean, that's why the great Atlanta Braves staff of Maddox, Smoltz, Glavine. They were all scratch golfers. You know what it all comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
Hey man, the Rookie is such a beautiful film, Dennis, from your sports filmography, and that's a movie where I have cried on airplanes watching that. Like literally, I start crying. I watched The Rookie on an airplane, and I just start crying about the story about Jim Morris, a teacher, getting a shot in the major leagues. What was it like meeting him?
He was on the set every day, and that's what I mean about my lucky life. The people I've really been able to really get to know. In fact, he's a guest on my podcast,
Fantastic.
The Dennissance. Had him on. We did the interview a couple of weeks ago, and it'll be coming out here within the next few weeks. And again, we talked about baseball, and we talked about just kind of dived a little deeper into his life after The Rookie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when after the movie came out, he's such an inspiration.
And was it a true story or that was just a Disney-fied version well, in terms of going out there and using a side of the road speedometer to test how fast he threw? Was that a real?
Well, that never happened.
That's great, though. I love it, though, Dennis. I love it.
That never happened when it came up as a 7 when it should have been a 9.
Right.
I think. That was the thing. And it's also true that I never put myself on a radar gun when I was during the whole film.
Come on,
I just didn't want to be disappointed. I did not want to be disappointed.
So how fast
I
you throw?
To look like I could do it.
How fast could you throw then? Come on now. What'd you touch?
I don't know.
80?
I never put myself on a radar gun, so I'm going to say 90 miles.
Attaboy. Damn straight you threw 90. You touched 90.
I probably would have been lucky to really be in the 70s. Let's put it that way.
I bet you touched 90, no doubt about it. What's the film you get the most, Dennis, when you're out and about or when?
What I'm out and about? Well, The Rookie is right up there, that's for sure. And I'm kind of, my career is kind of multi-generational at this point. That's because of have a film where people were kids in a particular generation. The Parent Trap is huge, of course, and Inner Space is surprisingly the number one movie that I get as far as worldwide.
No kidding.
I've been in the backwoods of India, and I heard somebody say Inner Space.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's surprising.
And breaking away, though, when we talk sports movies, that kind of gets lost, I'll be honest with you, because maybe it's not just about sports. It just involved a sport, and it involved... but what was...
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar put that in his top 5 sports movies of all time.
No kidding.
That movie, I watched it a couple of weeks ago because we're doing a reunion with all the Breaking Away cast.
No kidding. What, for charity? One of those Zooms for charity or something like that? To fight?
Yeah, and it's for the podcast as
okay,
well.
Cool.
Just to get together, and
that's amazing.
And hopefully Lance Armstrong is going to be the moderator.
Well, that would be good, Dennis. That's not a bad get. I mean,
yeah,
that'd be great. I'll definitely check that out.
But that was that movie had such charm. It was it was written by a first generation Czech immigrant. It was directed by an Englishman, and it's such a great American, like heart of America, Americana story that has such charm to it, and still holds up.
It's beautiful. It is. I'm glad I brought it up with you. Hey, Dennis, I appreciate the call, man. Congrats on your pod. If you're going to continue doing it, I'd love to complete a home and home. You've been so kind to come on my show in person and also here on the phone. If you ever need a guest, I'll be more than happy to pitch in there, man.
Appreciate that, man. I really would. I'd like to dive into your life away from the show.
I'm all in. I'm not that terribly interesting. I'm not like Lawrence Taylor, like teeing off the top of a Camaro or something like that. I mean, I can't tell stories like that, but I'll try and compete.
Well, I've always enjoyed being on a show, Rich, and thanks for still being there.
Thanks, brother.
You're going down to the studio and keeping it going, and we're gonna all get through this, and I think we're going to be even stronger for it.
I hope so, and I believe so, too. Thanks for the call, Dennis. You take care of yourself. That's
all right. God bless you.
Right back at you. That's care. Dennis Quaid. Check out the same to you. Check out the Dennissance podcast. Albert Pujols, his latest guest. Fabulous. 844-204-RICH. We're going to empty the phone banks. A lot of people have been holding on for some go. A lot of people have been holding on for quite some time. And I'm going to dive in on this on our poll question.
Okay.
Which, again, is you want to update the poll question before we hit the break? Because I'm going to dive right in on that.
Yeah, sure. We're talking about Off the Last Dance. Which one would you guys like to see next? Brady Belichick's Patriots, the 90s Cowboys. How about those Shaq Kobe Lakers? Right now, the Pats lead the way. 40%. Shaq, Kobe, Lakers, 33%. 90s Cowboys, 27%.
Well, we had Michael Wilbon last hour, okay? And he loved the poll question because he sounded like a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire contestant, sounding out his response, talking it out. He just couldn't 50-50 or phone a friend. He can't 50-50.
Needed to.
A three-choice answer, right? He couldn't 50-50 it. So he talked it out, saying he wanted to choose the Shaq Kobe Lakers, and then you know what, maybe the Patriots, because he was sick and tired of the Cowboys, he said. And then he texts me in the commercial break.
No way.
He was still thinking about it after he hung up. I take it back. My answer is the Cowboys with 4 exclamation points. Tired of the Patriots and can't have Kobe. How about them Cowboys? And I think he was inspired by the Stephen A. Smith drop that we play here all the time.
How about them Cowboys?
Now, we've got the Jimmy Johnson one when the Cowboys.
Right.
When they do something like sign Andy Dalton,
sure,
which I greatly appreciate, we use.
How about them Cowboys?
Right. And when they finish 8-8 and they're not supposed to, and everybody's wondering why isn't Dak signed yet?
I have to eat his hat.
Yeah, and so that's when the Stephen A. Smith drop comes in handy.
How about them Cowboys? Cowboys!
That's the way we roll here on the Rich Eisen show with our drops.
TJ likes the Stephen A. one.
Yeah, and no, he doesn't. He likes the Jimmy Johnson one because he's a Dallas Cowboy fan.
I don't have the patience to jack with you today.
And that's what the response of people who like the Stephen A. Well, I mean,
timeless.
Jerry Jones has just been
settle down just a little bit.
Yeah, okay. All right. We'll take a break, and we'll be right back on the Rich Eisen Show at 844-204-RICH, number to dial. So I'm going to chime in on this poll question. I know you don't like me to chime in until the very end, so I've held my powder
we're at the end,
a little bit.
Have at it.
I'll have it. We'll do that.
Have at it.
And then phone calls. Let me take a phone call right here. David in Houston, one of our favorites. Let's get David back on line 5, Mikey. How you been, David?
Hey, great. D-Bart says, shout out to the 454s. And Rich, I really appreciate it being part of your family. It's really been great.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. What's going on in your mind?
Well, I got a story first and then something for Chris. I burned 2,000 calories yesterday.
Jeez.
I left the brownies in the oven too long.
Okay, there you go. Very good.
Great
Chris,
dad joke.
If Tua becomes the man in Miami, how about bringing the Harvard man to New England?
No.
By the way, that's the only AFC East team he has not played for.
And
you
Frank,
do realize
Frank
that.
Gore, too. So we can sign both these guys so they can hit the quad?
Well, you can always tell a Harvard man, but you can't tell him much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, David.
2 for 2 walk-off. David.
That's it. I know. He's all sorts of one-liners right
no,
there.
I'm all in on Stidham now. I've talked myself.
You've got no choice.
Well, yes,
Belichick
that is a huge factor of it not having the choice, but I've talked myself
into Belichick's in.
Yeah.
And you also saw what Peter Schrager saying. It only took a matter of time till you hear information men, and you'll be hearing information men and women say this. Stidham's got, it's got people talking within the organization. Yeah. The organization's all in on him.
Yeah. First round arm is the quote that's this week.
I mean, Cam Newton's not walking through that door. Andy Dalton was never going to walk through that door. No one's walking through that door. When Brady called Belichick, this is going to be the narrative. When Brady called Belichick to say I'm out, it was Stidham's job, and he hasn't wavered at all. And Hoyer's the guy who's there as the old hand who's going to come in there and put at least 6 points on the board.
Stop.
Welcome to the rest of us, pal.
we had a great run.
Do we have a welcome to the party, pal drop? Do we have that? I think you do somewhere, right? Because that's the drop to play every.
Welcome to the party, pal.
That's the drop from now on, man.
We're putting that on page 1.
Is it a party though?
Well, for the rest of it.
Podcast1.com/Rich Eisen to get our podcast every day. Okay, everybody, back on the Rich Eisen Show. Fun show with Michael Silver, Michael Wilbon, and Dennis Quaid on tomorrow's show. And by the way, you can listen if you missed anything, podcast1.com/Rich Eisen. Podcast One is the home of our podcasts. All 3 hours are available every day. Bob Saget will be on tomorrow's edition of the Rich Eisen Show. Very excited about that. Friday's show with the schedule being out. Al Michaels of NBC. Sunday Night Football in America. Joe Buck of Fox Sports will be on, talking about Thursday Night Football, which is on Fox again, on Amazon Prime, is going to be streaming some games too. And Jonathan Banks, a.k.a. Mike Ehrmantraut of Better Call Saul.
Oh, Better Call Saul.
That's what we got rolling here.
And
so Breaking Bad, of course. And, of course, 48 Hours and Beverly Hills Cop.
Beverly Hills Cop.
Come on. We can go all over the place with the actor Jonathan Banks.
He saw the man that wrecked the buffet.
Is that right? Was he?
He got thrown through the buffet.
He's the one who was thrown through the buffet.
Yeah.
Right at the what club was it again?
Harrow's.
Harrow's.
Come on.
Harrow's.
That's my movie.
Sorry, my bad. Pardon me.
Beverly Hills.
Very good.
Is this the man?
Back off. Our poll question: is a fascinating one. Where things stand right now is it's like almost a third and a third right now of people.
Yeah,
people want to see.
It's a pretty split. The last Dance style doc you'd want to see next. The Pats lead the way, 40%. Shaq, Kobe, Lakers, 33%, and those '90s Cowboys at the White House, 27%.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see a Cowboys Last Dance. No way.
You'd have to get Jerry and Jimmy to both sit down.
Dude, you'd also have to get the players talking about what's going on off the field. I don't know how many people are going to be so. Because again, when you say Last Dance, when I mentioned this to Wilbon, or you mentioned it, you read the poll question. He was like, I'll interested in the Patriots, but Belichick and Brady have to tell their stories. And that's what the Last Dance is. You got to tell your stories. Everybody's telling their stories with F-bombs, S-bombs, all sorts of words being used. It's raw, and I think that's why people enjoy it. And it's got to be years from now, Belichick sits down, and Brady sits down, and everybody else sits down and tells their stories.
What happened with Garoppolo?
Yeah.
Like, what happened?
That's why, again, that is what we need to hear. And it's not just that, too.
That's just one. I mean,
okay, because the Kobe Shaq, I know that, Wilbon's pointing out that Kobe's no longer with us, which, again, I still can't believe. There's got to be enough sound of Kobe talking about Shaq in different places that you could weave something together. I just don't know how many Cowboys are going to be so open. Maybe one day, Brady, in the same way that Jordan wants his story told. And maybe one day, Belichick, who nobody saw coming as an analyst, Emmy-nominated analyst saw coming, maybe he wants his story told. And NFL Film sits down everybody, because that's who clearly everybody trusts, and they tell their story. And the whole thing. Today's the 5-year anniversary of Deflategate, the Ted Wells report being dropped. We were in New York. Remember that?
I do.
We were in New York City.
Crazy.
We were nominated for an Emmy.
Yep.
And I forget which one.
You were nominated for
I lost
studio
to Costas,
host.
I'm sure, whatever. And so
Ernie Johnson won that year.
Okay, whatever. Yeah. Oh, that was the year that he gave
gave it to Stu's.
He gave his Emmy to Stu's
sitting
daughters who were there.
Correct.
That was amazing.
That was awesome.
Oh, and so we were there, and Hank Azaria, the Jet/Met fan, he was scheduled to come in, and
that's right.
And we're like, okay, we'll still have a celebrity interview in the middle of the biggest sports story of the year to drop. Because it was how many pages was it?
243 pages.
And by the way, I saw on Brady's Twitter handle today, it's his dad's 76th birthday. So when his dad turned 71, that was when all of that dropped.
It was like $7 million.
I say
or
happy
something
birthday
on
to
this.
Brady Sr., who's a great human on the planet.
Indeed.
And the Belichick that we saw on set at NFL Films for the NFL 100 All-Time Team Show series showed up behind a podium because he had had enough of all the crap that was going on with Deflategate. If you remember, they beat the they beat the Colts like a drum in the AFC Championship game, despite the football that started it all being intercepted by a Colt. Okay, so if it was illegally deflated, Brady still didn't throw it accurately on a day where he didn't make any mistakes. So crazy that the football that started it was an intercepted football. And the concept is that the balls were so deflated, so Brady didn't have to throw any interceptions, or they were tougher to fumble. Remember that whole thing too?
Oh, yeah.
So Belichick showed up at a press conference a few days later when this whole thing blew up, and Belichick wanted to put it to bed before the Super Bowl against Seattle in Arizona, our Super Bowl that we were covering. And Belichick, this is an all-time great Belichick.
I'm not a scientist. I'm not an expert in footballs. I'm not an expert in football measurements. I'm just telling you what I know. Would not say that I'm Mona Lisa Vito of the football world, as she was in the car expertise area.
I mean, when Belichick dropped a My Cousin Vinny reference with full sarcasm and tongue-in-cheek, and people are like, where's that coming from? That's the Belichick that everybody says and that I saw in person that exists. And unbelievably, that sent us in a total wild frenzy to get on our first Super Bowl show in Arizona 2 days later. And it turned out to be the first Super Bowl guest in the history of our show, which has now been to 6 Super Bowls. The first ever Super Bowl guest was, in fact, Marissa Tomei, who played Mona Lisa Vito. And telling the story about how her phone, her world blew up. And she really didn't know much about Deflategate, God bless her.
No.
And remember that she said that the only time she could do was the first second we were on the air at our Super Bowl. So
right o'clock,
we
9
said,
Pacific.
hello, we're the Rich Eisen show at a Super Bowl. We're in this beautiful setup that Chris Long, who ran
in Phoenix,
DirecTV at the time, it was this makeshift saloon / hotel. And we're here, and we got tons of guests. But first, here's Marissa Tomei. Oscar winner Marissa Tomei for the role of Mona Lisa Vito.
Welcome to Super Bowl week.
So that's the documentary you want to see. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it would start with the Parcells and Belichick in New York City with the Jets and the resignation on a cocktail napkin, and he goes to New England, which was pissed because Curtis Martin was snagged by Parcells, and then he goes to New England, and then they draft 199th overall Thomas Edward Brady, and what happened in that season, and Lawyer Malloy. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on about the early parts of the years there. The videotapes.
Yeah. Oh, it'd be great.
Deflating of footballs and an absurdly long report by a lawyer about deflating. Brady winning a championship anyway.
The broken cell phone and the
oh my God,
4-game suspension.
Garoppolo all the way to the present day. Who wouldn't want to see that over any of it?
Yeah, I'll take 10 parts on that.
I take 20.
Well, you're a Patriot hater.
But I want to
pull
see
a chair
it all.
up.
I want to see it all.
But just like The Last Dance, it would be, with the exception of Eli Manning and that 1 year with Nick Foles, everybody gets destroyed. Equal opportunity destroyers. Equal opportunity.
Yeah.
844-204-RICH. Let's go to Rob in Michigan. You're here on the Rich Eisen Show. What's up, Rob?
Hey, Rich. Great to hear from you. I love your show.
Thank you.
On a couple of weeks ago talking about the Cowboys, but that's not why I called today.
Okay.
Although I will make a quick comment, I love the draft, and I didn't think, when they're in the 4th round, I didn't think they would get the center from Wisconsin. It kind of got scary there. But anyway, didn't call to talk about that. Wanted to call and talk about Sir Charles Barkley.
Okay.
Just a quick little story. It was in the middle 90s, which, by the way, put me down, obviously, for the poll for the Cowboys.
Okay.
That'd be a great story. But anyway, he's in Toledo. Actually, it's Sylvania. It's a suburb of Toledo. Only there for the Owens Corning Classic. And he had a horrible day. His golf swing, was legendary for not being the greatest. But even Hank Haney tried to work with him. But anyway, I don't know where he's at now with his golf swing. But he shanked one off the tee, and he hit someone, and he was so gracious. But so my brother-in-law and I are coming back from our golf league, and he was at a restaurant, local sports bar. So we go up there, and I said, I want to see Charles Barkley, and my brother-in-law Gary, he's just so laid back. He comes up to Charles, and he says, "Hey, Chuck," calls him Chuck. "Hey, Chuck, tough day on the course, huh?" And Charles said, "Yeah, man, yeah, And then all of a sudden, unbeknownst to me, and there's no way I could have ever predicted this, my brother-in-law goes, "Hey, Chuck, can I touch your head?" And I'm like, what in the heck is wrong with Gary? That's my brother-in-law. And so he not only touches his head, he gets behind him and kind of hands it up and goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. And Charles, his face was just incredible. But he smiled, and he was thinking, I think he was thinking, what in the heck is going on here? But what a tremendous guy!
Hey, listen, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you sharing that story, Rob. And I'll never forget. Again, one of the first times I met Charles was at the Jimmy V charity golf tournament every year on behalf of the V Foundation, associated with ESPN, and every year it was a must-go-to for whatever sports center anchors that were not on duty. And a lot of us would ask for the days off to make sure we go because it was amazing, and the people who went were amazing, and the tournament was remarkable, and it was always a blast. And when Jordan would show up, it would just be a totally different intensity to it and excitement to it. And one year, I remember, Jordan was there, and we went out to a bar one night, and the place was packed because Jordan was there, and so were so many other NBA stars. And they had a riser in the middle of the bar, or it was a raised part of the bar that they created into a VIP area where Jordan would sit and other of the celebrities would sit. And there would be a whole bunch of people around it with velvet ropes and all that stuff. And Barkley wouldn't go in there. Barkley was fully available. And it was that was a spot for him to go to if he wanted to. He's Charles Barkley. He was just always out. And obviously, at times when you heard him throw someone through a window, right? I mean, that happened back in the day when he talked about I'm not your role model and all that sort of stuff. He's just a human being. He's a regular person, but he was always accessible. Always. And he still always is. He's calling into that Waddle and Sylvie show for 10 years, right, in Chicago?
Yeah.
When we call, he answers.
He always says yes.
That's who he is. I love the guy. Let's go. Who's been waiting a long time? Jim in Connecticut. Jim in the great nutmeg state of Connecticut. You're on the Rich Eisen Show. What's up,
Hey,
Jim?
Rich, how you doing?
How are you, sir?
Good, thank you. You're getting us through this quarantine thing, man. I can count on 3 hours a day with you every day, and that's fine.
My pleasure. If we can do it, we'll do it. We'll keep doing it. So thank you.
Well, I'm a lifelong Minnesota Vikings fan, okay? So when I hear you talk about the Jets, I have a hard time generating a lot of sympathy because you've won a Super Bowl more recently than we have.
Yeah, but you got a good Favre. We got the Favre that we gave to the Vikings to almost make the Super Bowl. I mean, we could go toe-to-toe here, bud.
That's actually true. You kind of gave up a little early on that.
Yeah, you think?
But the bottom line is this: we've been 52 years without a championship.
Right.
So I know how Cubs and Sox fans feel. The last time the Vikings won was the year before the merger. It was the last pure NFL AFL championship year.
Yeah. No, you can keep going because I'm listening to you. You
Well,
got Kirk Cousins over the Jets. I mean, what more do you want? What more do you want?
Spielman takes a hard time for his drafts. I think the Vikings had a sensational draft this year.
Well, Justin Jefferson dropping to 22, in the spot where you choose him, and I appreciate the call, sir. Thanks for saying what you say. We're here for you best we can. Justin Jefferson dropping in the spot that you get for Diggs. Okay.
Yeah.
That works. You get that kid Gladney. Obviously you're redoing the back end of your defense, and from what everybody says about Gladney, he's a Zimmer type player. You go offensive line. I got it right here in front of me. Ezra Cleveland, 58th overall. That's a pretty good one. These are all picks that you need. The kid Dantzler from Mississippi State, another corner. They rush the passer. They got two. They hit the defensive line twice. They got an offense. They got a middle linebacker, another corner. And then you go kid Osborne from Miami in the 5th round, where you supposedly can get, and I could keep going on and on. Hey, it worked out well. I'm sorry. I know Vikings. We got Nick Swardson on next week, right? He's on our program.
Yes, sir.
He's a diehard Viking fan. We can go toe-to-toe about his misery and mine. We could do all that.
Vikings is up there, man.
Tony in the great state of Ohio, in Columbus, Ohio. What's up, Tony?
Yeah, Rich, I'm a first-time caller, man. Big fan.
Thanks for saying that.
I got a question for you. And I've been listening to, all the different shows and everything.
That's your first mistake. No, I'm just kidding.
Excuse me?
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm just kidding. I'm from Cincinnati originally. I live in Columbus. I'm not the biggest Andy Dalton fan. Let's not get that twisted. But I want to ask you a question. When Andy Dalton had his best, his best numbers and everything worked out great for him and all that kind of stuff, Pro Bowls.
Yes.
wasn't he with Hugh Jackson and Jay Gruden?
Yes.
And I mean, basically since then he hadn't really had anybody to challenge him. What's to say that a Mike McCarthy, infusion of coaching and this guy's probably got a boulder on his shoulder.
No doubt. And here's the thing, and I've got another minute to the end of the show, so I say thank you for calling in, and please call back, and feel free to listen to other people. That's fine. I can handle that. It's good. I'm sure he's hearing from other shows that Dalton could start over Dak. That's not happening. That's not why they got him. Okay.
No, I was kidding about that yesterday.
No, I know that. But you're seeing it on other shows. And I did, with the Dalton signing, say it was a great idea because just in case in the Dumb and Dumber shot that Dak decides to go to Cabo instead of showing up to whatever training camp, whenever it is for the Dallas Cowboys, that you got Dalton there. And you want to talk about without a net. With all due respect to Cooper Rush, I don't know who Cooper Rush is. You just got Andy Dalton for $3 million, maybe $7 million with incentives. If Dak is hurt, off you go. Cooper Rush is now at the New York Giants because Garrett couldn't quit him, I guess. I love the Dalton move, as you know, but it's not to start over Dak. That's not what this is for.
No.
I want to thank Michael Silver, Michael Wilbon, and Dennis Quaid. Tomorrow's show, Bob Saget. Chris, the final poll results over there on the Rich Eisen Show Twitter handle.
Yeah, Patriots take this one, 40%.
I pushed that one across the goal line, huh? That'll wrap it up for this Wednesday edition of the Rich Eisen Show. We will see you Thursday. Schedule release day.